Chapter 12:21. As time passed, the moment when the gate of Sky Demon would close was approaching. The Beast Kings of Tion Fa's expressions grew more solemn and solemn. This last moment was often the most dangerous. When one thought that the defense this time was foolproof, it was usually when a huge change would occur. The Beast Kings were well aware of this fact. The gate of Sky Demon had its rules. Those above the level of Royal Saint could not enter. However, that was only for the demon race. The Holy Land of Tion Fa, as the defense, did not have such a taboo. However, there were also corresponding concerns in this situation. If a Holy Venerable level Beast King entered the Sky Demon portal due to some kind of fortuitous encounter, and the other demons also sent Holy Venerable level Beast Kings in, the energy balance of the passageway would be maintained and would not collapse. In other words, the other side could not enter, but as long as one side could enter, the other side could enter. This taboo was an absolute taboo that the Holy Land of Tion Fa dared not violate no matter what. If they sent their Supreme Saint and the other side Supreme Saint came in as well, then the Gate of Sky Demon would become a smooth path for the massive demon race. No one could bear the consequences of this. There was still an hour and a half left. 2 hours left. 35 minutes left. There was still an hour left. As time passed, the demon race in the Gate of Sky Demon began to dwindle. It was as if the demon race had decided to give up on this battle for the gate. In spite of this, the Beast Kings of Tion Fa stood up one by one, their eyes fixed on the Gate of Sky Demon unblinkingly. Their expressions were unprecedentedly tense, their weapons gripped tightly in their hands, ready to strike at any moment. Yun Yang was also highly anxious due to the tense atmosphere. He seized every second to create a few more weapons and place them where the Beast Kings could easily reach them. The Beast Kings were extremely tense now, to the point where they could not add even a feather. Yun Yang, who understood this well, was afraid of triggering a chain reaction and causing adverse consequences even if he sent the weapons. Up until now, Yun Yang had refined and recast more than 100 heavy and super heavy weapons. The countless broken weapons in the Holy Land of Divine Punishment had basically been looted clean. Emmy was exhausted, feeling like its body had been emptied dozens of times. Yun Yang thought about it and forced Emmy to bring out a few more bottles of medicinal pills, bringing them all out as well. At a time like this, the more war resources he had, the better. So what if his body was hollowed out? Squeeze and squeeze again. If you're a man, don't say that you can't do it. While Emmy struggled to hold on, it roared, "I, Lord Emmy, have already dug everything clean, all right? What more do I have to squeeze? Also, although I am a rare divine being and a peerless spiritual plant, I am not a man." There was still a final quarter of an hour to go. With a low roar, the passageway suddenly revealed an extremely dense demonic aura. In an instant, the demonic aura rose and covered the sky. At the same time, 2 huge white jade-like horns appeared on the other side of the Sky Demon's gate. However, only these 2 horns could be seen on the other side of the demon clan's body, and no other parts could be seen. A low voice said, "Which Beast King from the Holy Land of Divine Punishment is it outside this time?" "The single-horned old rhinoceros greets you." Outside, the usually audacious and fearless Bear King sucked in a breath of cold air. "It's a single-horned rhinoceros. A 4th-level Saint Emperor single-horned rhinoceros. And there were 2 of them." The Beast King's expressions turned even uglier. Yun Yang's expression also turned grim. Looking at the expressions of the Beast Kings, no one could match a 4th-level Saint Emperor single-horned rhinoceros. The disparity in levels was not something that a handy weapon and some supplies could make up for. Especially when the opponent had sent out 2 of them at once, the disparity was even greater. Suddenly, a long iron rod extended out of the cave without any warning. Although it was called a rod, the thickness of the rod was like the trunk of a towering tree that had been growing for hundreds or thousands of years. It was so thick that it would take several people to wrap their arms around it. It was extremely intimidating, as if it could hold up the heavens. Facing this sudden change, the Bear King, who was closest to the cave, roared like a madman. As it let out a hoarse roar, its entire body rapidly grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it had already become a towering giant. An unprecedentedly dazzling light burst out from his body. He roared repeatedly and rushed forward. The huge hammer in his hand was raised once again. With a roar, an earth-shattering hammer smashed down. For this strike, the Bear King had been accumulating power for a long time, and had already gathered the peak of his strength. In terms of strength alone, the might of this strike was even above the all-out strike from before. At the same time, the Ox King, Lion King, and Tiger King also roared and charged forward. Naturally, the demons on the other side did not know that their king was not present. But everyone on their side was well aware of this. They had been suppressing the other party with all their might, so that they would not discover the actual situation on their side. If the other party had already discovered that their Saint Venerable was not present, they would have sent out a peak Saint Emperor to charge over. After all, the other party's Saint Emperor was also considered a high-level existence. They could not just charge over and sacrifice themselves for nothing. Fortunately, they had managed to conceal this process well. But now, at the final moment, the other party had already reached the point where they would fight with their lives on the line. Even if they knew that it was suicide, they still had to try. Because if they did not try, they would have to wait for 100 years. This was also the reason why the two peak Saint Emperors had appeared and asked a question in the tunnel instead of charging out directly. If they could not defeat these two single-horned rhinoceroses head-on in the first wave, they would fall into a completely passive state. The situation would take a turn for the worse, and it would be difficult to reverse the situation. It was obvious that the demons were using the same tactic as before. They would first use numbers to exhaust the energy of the guards as much as possible. Then, in the final moment, they would use the full power of peak Saint Kings to end the battle in a single stroke. A loud explosion rang out. The 6 experts collided fiercely at the entrance of the tunnel. The resulting shockwave almost blasted a huge hole in the sky. An angry voice rang out from within. "Where is the king of Tian Fa? How dare you use such a second-rate character to humiliate us? How dare you?" There was anger in the voice, but there was also a sense of relief. Chapter 12:22. King Bear guffawed. Second-rate characters? So what if you're second-rate characters? Haven't you all been thrown back by me? You can't even win against a second-rate character. The so-called demon race's experts are getting worse with each generation. Will there still be a place for the demon race in this world 100 years from now? The Bear King laughed crazily, and his words were extremely sharp and sarcastic. However, they were not as incisive as his mouth. It had nothing to do with the grand scheme of things. Instead, it attracted an even more violent backlash. With a sneer from the other side, the 2 large metal rods appeared once again. With 2 loud booms, the sabers that King Leo and King Tiger had sent flying were deflected as they staggered. The moment the attack succeeded, the 2 huge horns also protruded out of the hole, and an extremely thick leg followed closely behind. That unstoppable momentum, coupled with the stomp of the leg, even caused the earth to shake and the mountains to shake, making one's skin crawl. King Bear's sledgehammer came crashing down again, its force no different from before. An earth-shattering boom erupted in the air as it clashed with the opponent's metal rods. However, the opponent's metal rods were heavy and heavy. Despite being on the defensive, King Bear was not at a disadvantage. Although King Bear was already fighting with all his might, pushing his strength to the limit and even activating the arcane art of life, he still could not increase the results of the battle. The sledgehammer in his hand continued to crack from the opponent's counterattack. 2 majestic silhouettes with a towering demonic aura had already appeared at the door of Sky Demon's door. King Bear, King Tiger, and King Lion were furious. Although they tried to stabilize themselves, they were constantly being pushed back. The distance between them was growing further and further apart, to the point that they did not even have the space to self-destruct. Although there were flying mystical beasts that were willing to risk their lives to join in the battle and self-destruct, the disparity in cultivation base made the power of their self-destruction not even enough to make the 2 Saint Emperors of the demon race retreat. "Please!" A desolate cry rang in Yunyang's ears and his heart skipped a beat. Then, over 300 golden armored ants flew up in unison, charging towards the Sky Demon's door. The distance of thousands of feet was covered in the blink of an eye with a flap of their wings. This was the golden armored ants' request to him. "There's hope for the tribe. We can sacrifice ourselves." Boom! Just as the 300 golden armored ants reached the Sky Demon Gate, the 2 one-horned rhinoceroses rushed out. With a sharp roar, the 300 golden armored ants roared at the same time, and a white light flashed. 300 golden armors exploded at the same time. Suddenly, a thick, golden mysterious silk net appeared outside the Sky Demon door and completely covered the entire door. Yunyang's eyes widened in disbelief. The last 3 words of the golden armored ant were obviously asking him to help their race, but that was for later. What truly shocked Yunyang was the collective self-destruction of over 300 golden armored ants. Without a shred of hesitation, he left without hesitation. Yunyang drew his saber. Sword transformation. Lack. He was very tired. He was about to reach his limit. However, he had no choice but to make a move. Layers upon layers of golden silk webs covered the entrance of the heavenly demon door. Crazy roars could be heard coming from within the silk webs, and loud rumbling noises could be heard. Again and again, protrusions protruded out of the silk webs that covered the entrance of the heavenly demon door, charging left and right. The defense of the golden silk net was undoubtedly strong, beyond Yunyang's expectations, but it still had its limits. The golden silk net was about to collapse. However, 10 breaths had passed. The collective self-destruction of over 300 golden armored ants had bought 10 breaths worth of time. The Monkey King once said that the golden armored ant clan had tens of billions of members when they were at their most numerous. Judging from the strength of the 300 or so golden armored ants, it was obvious that they were far from the strongest combat strength of the golden armored ants. Then, in the past, the golden armored ants were able to firmly guard the Sky Demon Gate without any mistakes. How could it be just believable? It was unquestionable and without any room for doubt. With a quick glance, Yunyang was shocked to see that not only were the Bear King's hands bleeding profusely and his hammer stained red, the other Beast Kings were also covered in blood and injuries. The Tiger King's injury was the most severe. His right arm was twisted like a fried dough twist, pale white bones protruding from his flesh. In less than a breath's time, a large rod broke through the golden silk net with a loud bang. With a piercing sound like silk being torn, the golden silk net shattered and vanished without a trace. The eyes of the Bear King and the others were filled with despair. The Tiger King roared in despair, "Brothers, let us all be on our way." The Beast Kings did not waste any words nor did they hesitate. Each of them glowed brilliantly, just like the 300 golden armored ants from before. Other than self-detonation, they had no other way to deal with the other party. They did not fear death at all, but they were still terrified. They were confident that they could repel the other party after their collective self-detonation, but they did not have the confidence to kill the other party, especially the 2 4th-level Saint Emperors from the demon race. There was still some time before the Sky Demon Gate closed, but that little bit of time was enough to cause terrifying consequences. In other words, even if they self-detonated, the Sky Demon Gate would most likely not be able to be defended this time. However, it was at this moment, when the Beast Kings had gone to the extreme but were still filled with despair, they saw an extremely dazzling sword light suddenly soar into the sky, illuminating the universe. Everyone looked over instinctively, only to see a small sun suddenly appear in the sky. Its radiance was incomparably dazzling. In the middle of the light, a voice that sounded like it was singing slowly said, "What harm is there in slaughtering the entire world?" Following that, the light suddenly blossomed with a kind of green brilliance. That was because the blazing white sword light was so dense that it created an illusion. That dazzling sword light was like thousands of thunderbolts exploding at the same time, shooting out a magnificent sword chi that was hundreds of feet long, like the Milky Way was pouring down to the mortal world, crashing down. Just as everyone's attention was focused on it, this sword light rushed straight into the Sky Demon Gate with an unstoppable force, entering forcefully. Following that, the hundreds of feet-long sword light that appeared in the sky also followed closely behind. Boom! Even the Bear King and the other Beast Kings outside the door felt as if their skin had been cut open. It was clearly just the remnant sword chi, but it was still able to cut and injure the powerful bodies of the Beast Kings. Facing the sword light head-on, one could only imagine the amount of damage they had to endure. It could only be described with the word, horrifying. Facing this sudden shocking sword light were the 2 Saint Emperor single-horned rhinoceroses that had already rushed out of the Sky Demon Gate. These 2 fellows let out incomparably tragic cries. No, it should be said that after the first syllable, they suddenly stopped. Abruptly stopped. That incomparably sharp sword chi instantly filled the entire Sky Demon Gate. LTGT. Chapter 12:23. The dazzling sword light surged forward. It was like the scorching sun high up in the sky, shining on sporadic snowflakes. The 2 single-horned rhinoceroses only managed to make a few sounds in that instant before they were reduced to mincemeat. The powerful sword chi did not slow down even after killing the 4th Order Saint King. It continued to sweep through the heavenly demon door like a dragon. A series of miserable cries resounded through the sky as blood poured out of the heavenly demon door like a waterfall. The corners of the Beast King's mouths twitched, their eyes and mouths slanted. Just how many demons had been killed by that sword? Why was the river of blood that flowed out like a waterfall? Moreover, it was the kind that flowed endlessly and endlessly. The screeching of the sword energy seemed to be continuing, but the cries on the other end seemed to be 1,000 feet away from the tunnel. The next moment, the majestic sword light flashed again. Yun Yang's robe had turned crimson-purple as he retreated. Only the sharp sword in his hand was still gleaming with a chilling glint. However, when he was hundreds of feet away, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were shut tight as he fell straight to the ground, unconscious. With Yun Yang's current cultivation base, it was impossible for him to unleash such power. The strike just now was the culmination of Yun Yang's cultivation base, the chi of endless vitality, the mystical chi that he had been accumulating for a long time, in addition to the 13 streams of air of vitality that Emmy had squeezed out with all its might and the power of its soul. All of these had been unleashed at the same time. This was the fiercest attack Yun Yang had ever unleashed in his life. At the same time, it was also the highest output he had ever exerted in this world. At this critical moment, Yun Yang had no other choice. With his cultivation base that had just broken through to first-level Saint Emperor Pinnacle, it was impossible for him to defeat 2 fourth-level Saint Emperors at once. The only thing that could work now was this one move. Yun Yang would give it a try with everything he had. Yun Yang had always known that the spiritual chi required for this move was too much. If his cultivation base was too low, he would not be able to unleash the effect, far from being able to help the current situation. Moreover, his opponents were 2 fourth-level Saint Emperors. Yun Yang was even worried that he might not be able to hurt his opponent even if he were to unleash his full strength. Therefore, Yun Yang had decisively drained all of his spiritual energy and everything that Emmy could provide to the original owner. He had unleashed this move with an extreme decisiveness that even he himself hadn't expected. After launching this move, the only thing he could do afterwards was to follow the momentum of the sword and charge forward. At this time, the Sky Demon passageway was filled with demon race members. These demon race members were all ready, waiting for the 2 single-horned rhinoceroses to break the passageway. Then, they would immediately rush out and rush into the Tian Fa Holy Land that the demon race had yearned for generations. The demons were squeezed one by one, and it was not just one against one. The space that was supposed to be able to stand 2 people was now filled with 3 or 4 bodies. Amidst the densely packed demons, Yun Yang broke through the single-horned rhinoceros with a swing of his sword, killed it, and slashed it into pieces before charging in. Like a bulldozer, he pushed forward with irresistible force and unstoppable courage. Wherever it passed, all the demons were minced into dust without exception. There were no exceptions. Yun Yang's charge could have covered at least 20,000 feet in the spacious passageway, but faced with the densely packed demons that were squeezing the passageway, Yun Yang had only managed to cover 1,000 feet before his sword energy was depleted. In spite of this, Yun Yang understood that this 1,000-feet charge would have killed at least tens of thousands of demons with this single slash. It was too densely packed. Then, he felt lethargic, as if he might not be able to hold on at any time. He might be out of breath or even out of energy. Decisively, he mobilized the last bit of energy he had left and charged back. The demons in front of him in all shapes and sizes were dumbfounded, unable to react in time. They were still squeezed in the passageway, feeling uncomfortable and wanting to curse, but in the next moment, there was only emptiness before them. Everything had happened so suddenly and inconceivably. How did more than half of the demon-race demonic beasts in front of him evaporate? Where did they disappear to? Only the blood under his feet had suddenly reached his ankles. It was wet and slippery. There was also a human who had suddenly appeared, but he had already retreating to the outside of the Sky Demon Gateway. All the demonic beasts only felt a blur in front of their eyes, and then there was nothing else. Chase. Charge. How to chase. How to charge. Every demonic beast's legs had turned to jelly at this moment. After being stunned for a long time, the demons at the back who did not know what had happened could not hold it in and began to squeeze forward instinctively. Only then did these demonic beasts come to their senses. However, as soon as their feet moved, they fell to the ground and were trampled by the countless demonic beasts that were rushing forward crazily. Those who stepped on the demonic beasts in front of them were stunned by the scene in front of them. The further they went, the more terrified they became, and they shuddered. What happened? Why is there an empty passageway in front of me? Why are there no demonic beasts in front of me? And what is under my feet? Why did the passageway suddenly become so smelly and fishy? Outside. Quickly take care of Leader Yun and bring the rest of the medicine over, quickly. King Bear's lips trembled as he roared. The rest of you follow me. There's only a little time left. We must defend it. We must defend it at all costs. Without exception, all the Beast Kings were pale and sweating profusely. Half of it was from fear. The other half was actually from fear as well. It was just that the first half was due to the loss of the Sky Demon Gateway, while the other half was due to Yun Yang's sword. There was actually such a sword in this world. Did they not hear Leader Yun's shout? What harm is there in slaughtering the family? This sword. If there was enough power to execute this sword, perhaps it could really slaughter the family? It was too terrifying. The Beast King's prediction of the demon race did not happen again. For the rest of the time, there were only sporadic demonic beasts that emerged to fight again. Their combat power was not very high either, so the last bit of fighting was a waste of time. The rainbow light that the mystical beasts were anticipating suddenly disappeared. The heavenly demon door slowly shrank. In the end, only the head of a tiger demon could be seen roaring a few times at the entrance of the passageway before it was hidden in the colorful light. When I wrote this move, I obviously felt different from before. My state of mind was different. Apt. Mobile Reading Access, M. Chapter 1224. The Celestial Demon Gateway had disappeared completely, leaving behind only the mess outside. The moment they confirmed that the Celestial Demon Gateway had disappeared, the dozen or so kings of the mystical beasts sat down on the ground in unison. Looking at the devastation, they heaved a sigh of relief. What followed was a deeper sorrow. The price that the Holy Land of Tian Fa had paid in these 3 consecutive days of battle was not only extremely huge, it was unprecedented. In this battle, the strongest forces of the Tian Fa Holy Land were still at the Holy Light Pond, unable to rush back to participate in the battle. As the second strongest forces, although all of them were still alive, and none of them had died, every single one of them had used their secret arts more than once in this battle. If they did not have any other opportunities, it would be extremely difficult for them to make another breakthrough in their cultivation. Their losses were equally heavy, and the middle and high-level forces were completely wiped out, with not even a single one of them remaining. The hundreds of thousands of middle-tier and higher-tier mystical beasts in the Holy Land of Tian Fa were the backbone of the Holy Land for the next hundreds or even thousands of years, but more than 100,000 of them had perished in this battle. And this was just a rough calculation. There were also the 300 golden armored ants that had self-destructed at the last moment, creating an opportunity to block the passage. However, the top-tier forces of the golden armored ants had also been wiped out. The battle was won. But what about the future? It was still possible for the survivors to hold on for hundreds of years. But what about 1,000 years later? By then, there would be a lack of pinnacle combat power. Bear King and the others were at a loss, without the slightest joy of victory. As for Yun Yang, he had fallen into a deep coma. It was not that he had never exhausted himself before, but it had never been as thorough as this time. This time, from his body to his soul, mystical chi to spiritual chi, even Emmy's energy was extracted by him. He was currently unconscious, blood still gushing out of his mouth. The only thing that could comfort him was perhaps the chi of karma that was still rushing into his deific consciousness like a tsunami. On Emmy's 5th leaf, a sharp lotus leaf was quietly rising. Not only was Yun Yang exhausted from this battle, but Emmy was also exhausted like never before. Its usual vigor was completely gone. However, Emmy's 6th lotus leaf was slowly growing under the infusion of the abundant air of karma. Its growth speed was unprecedentedly fast. Yun Yang had been unconscious for a whole day. It was in this short span of time that the 6th lotus leaf had grown from a tiny sprout into a huge, thick leaf. Moreover, the karma chi that he had obtained this time was not exhausted yet. From this to the other, it wasn't difficult to imagine exactly how much karma chi had been created in these short 3 days of slaughter. Furthermore, other than the last wave, the karma chi that he had obtained before this was obtained indirectly with the help of the Beast King. If all the beasts were killed by Yun Yang alone, not only would Emmy's 6th lotus leaf be completed, it might even be able to improve its 7th leaf. This was only a beautiful fantasy. Even Yun Yong himself dared not have such extravagant hopes. It was only the last wave that lasted less than 10 breaths. When Yun Yong was done with his maximum output, he had almost died of exhaustion on the other side of the demonic realm's door. If it were not for Aunt May's unparalleled sword skill, if it were not for the last bit of energy he had left, he might have been buried in a foreign land. No, he would have died without a complete corpse, not even his bones. A soft boom resounded in the deific consciousness space. The entire space was quickly filled with an endless, dense purple chi, which finally attached itself to Emmy. Ayaya! As if Emmy had been reborn, it was so happy that it danced and waved its vines in the air, whipping Gigi that was snuggling up to it. Gigi fled in all directions, crying out in grief and indignation. You're happy. This is a good thing. Why do you have to hit me? What is this? We're good friends. Shouldn't we celebrate together? On the other hand, the dense karma energy was still surging in endlessly as if there was no end to it. Emmy was exhausted after the past few days. Naturally, it did not hold back at all as it devoured the karmic chi that it rarely collected. Yun Yang, who was directly involved, knew nothing about this because he was in a deep coma. There was still a long way to go before he could regain his consciousness. The Beast Kings who had been watching over Yun Yang were surprised to witness something strange that they had never seen before in their lives. Yun Yang was now in a deep coma, a coma due to exhaustion. There was no doubt about it. Everyone knew it very well. If one wanted to cause such a state, then one's internal organs would definitely be shaken, one's profound energy would be destroyed to the limit, one's soul would be overdrawn, and even one's vitality would be exhausted. Moreover, falling into such a state of unconsciousness would naturally cause one's body to be in an extremely weak state. Logically speaking, it was normal for him to not wake up for half a year or even a few months. It was not impossible for him to be unable to recover for the rest of his life and fall into an eternal slumber, ending his martial path. Since the beginning of time, there were many such examples in the bound of universe. Therefore, the Beast Kings were grateful and ashamed of Yun Yang's injuries, but they were mostly worried. Other than these thoughts, no one would have thought that sect leader Yun would wake up and regain his consciousness in such a short period of time. However, the reality was a situation that was even more unusual and unbelievable than waking up immediately occurred. The situation was that sect leader Yun, who was in a deep coma and had yet to regain his consciousness, did not show any signs of weakening. Instead, his aura was rising steadily. Other than the initial period of weakness, he began to rise step by step, as if he was ascending to the heavens. Each of the Beast Kings remembered clearly that sect leader Yun's cultivation base was only at the first level of Saint Emperor before he fell into a coma. However, after he fell into a coma, his aura that was supposed to be weak only lasted for a very short period of time before it rose rapidly to the second level of Saint Emperor. This was already shocking enough, but if one were to look into it, it might not be completely unfathomable. For example, Yun Yang had a strong foundation, and now that he had killed countless demons, including 2 fourth-order Saint Emperors, it was still reasonable for him to have a breakthrough. It was not completely unfathomable for him to have a reason for it. Putting aside the fact that Yun Yang had just advanced to the first level of Saint Emperor not long ago, it was barely logical. However, what happened next was completely illogical. Yun Yang had just advanced to the second level of Saint Emperor not long ago. It had only been less than a quarter of an hour when another aura of a cultivation base breakthrough appeared. Hiss! The Beast King sucked in a breath of cold air. Finally, this part has ended. GT. Chapter 1225. Initially, the group did not even think about Yun Yang. They even thought they were smart enough to think that someone else had coincidentally broken through at this time. However, after a round of searching, they were shocked to find that Yun Yang had advanced to the third level of Saint Emperor. The third level of Saint Emperor was far from the main point. It only paused for a moment before it broke through to the fourth level. Just when everyone was racking their brains, even thinking that Yun Yang was actually expending a large amount of life force and that his current breakthrough was just an illusion, that he could die at any time, the person who was suspected to be on the brink of death once again advanced steadily, all the way to the pinnacle of Saint Emperor. Then, the bottleneck of the Supreme Saint level that had been regarded as the greatest obstacle in cultivation since ancient times disappeared with a soft crack. It was also at this moment that Yun Yang's aura completely blended into the heaven and earth. With the cultivation base of the Beast Kings present, they could no longer detect his cultivation base level. How could a person who was exhausted and unconscious break through consecutively. Was this the blind spot of the cultivation model, or was it a personal mistake in cultivation? This was truly worth discussing. Not only had the Beast Kings never heard of such a strange thing in their lives, it was something that had never happened since the beginning of time. Everyone was at a loss, not knowing what to do. However, looking at Yun Yang's face that had regained color, it was obvious that all his injuries had healed, or at least improved significantly. Currently, he only looked like he had fallen into a dormant state due to exhaustion. His body was definitely fine, and it was not a terminal lucidity. How strange! Lion King grabbed his two bright silver hammers. From the beginning to the end, Lion King did not have the chance to show off his life's unique skill, the rolling lion ball. It had to be said that this was the greatest regret of all onlookers. It is indeed strange. Bear King grinned. Wait patiently. Take good care of him. Crane King sighed and said, the Holy Land of Tian-Fa owes him a favor bigger than the heavens this time. We won't be able to repay this favor even in this life, the next life, or the next life after that. Despite saying so, the Beast Kings all heaved a long sigh of relief. Finally, they had managed to hold on. 3 days later, Yun Yang slowly woke up. As soon as he woke up and regained his senses, he immediately felt as if his head was about to explode, and his head was splitting apart. It was not the usual discomfort that felt like an explosion. His mind was filled with too much information. The information that had just surged in and had yet to be sorted out was too much, too messy. Even Yun Yang's head could not handle it, so he felt bloated and uncomfortable. In other words, it was a splitting headache. What's going on? For a moment, Yun Yang could not help feeling a little confused, but he soon realized how different he was. An indescribable ecstasy washed over him. It was unimaginably powerful, as if the world was within his grasp. Yun Yang wanted to jump for joy to vent the boundless joy he was feeling right now, but he quickly suppressed all his emotions and stood up with a flip. Now was not the time to think about this. Has the Sky Demon Gateway been secured? Yun Yang opened his eyes and asked hurriedly. It's safe, it's safe. Hearing this, Bear King's tears almost fell again. In the next moment, Crane King gave an order. Facing Yun Yang who had just sat up, he said, all mystical beasts in the Holy Land of Tian-Fa, listen up. Bow. The 12 Beast Kings took the lead, and the countless wounded mystical beasts behind them bowed with one hand on their chest. Thank you, Sect Leader Yun, for your righteousness and help. Thank you, Sect Leader Yun, for turning the tide with a shocking strike at the critical moment. Sect Leader Yun deserves the greatest credit for this victory. The Holy Land of Tian-Fa never makes promises easily. But today, we have to say one thing. Crane King straightened his body, and all the mystical beasts spoke in unison. From now on, if Sect Leader Yun has any orders, the Holy Land of Tian-Fa will not hesitate to risk our lives. Yun Yang sighed softly and said, I'm ashamed. Crane King and all of you, you don't have to do this. Our goal is the same. To defend against the invasion of the demon race, to prevent them from entering the Bound of Universe, and to protect the peace and stability of the Bound of Universe. In this battle, the meager strength that I have contributed is nothing more than to benefit from the grand occasion. It is only natural. Speaking of gratitude, it should be me representing the humans of the Bound of Universe to express our sincerest gratitude to the generations of Beast Kings of the Holy Land of Tian-Fa. If it wasn't for all of you guarding this land for so many years and eternally sealing the Heaven Demon's gateway, the Bound of Universe would have fallen long ago and become a paradise for the demon race. To the entire Bound of Universe, all of you are the greatest heroes. Yun Yang's voice was loud and deafening, each word clearly reaching the ears of the thousands of mystical beasts present. These mystical beasts stood quietly, their gazes heated, and many of their eyes reddened. The sealing of the Heaven Demon's gateway was a long experience that spanned countless years. The mystical beasts of the Holy Land of Tian-Fa had contributed for a long time without anyone knowing. They had no regrets. For millions of years, more than tens of millions of mystical beasts had died here. But almost no one knew what they had sacrificed. Now there was finally a day when a human like this spoke on behalf of the entire human race. All of you are the greatest heroes. It was a short sentence, a few words in total, but it warmed the hearts of the thousands of mystical beasts, making them feel that their efforts were not in vain. Thank you. Yun Yang bowed deeply to the beasts. Although our races are different, humans and mystical beasts. Mystical beasts and humans will be the closest partners when it comes to dealing with the demon race. Thank you, Holy Land of Tion Fa, for all your efforts over the years. All of you have worked hard. Crane King and the rest stood quietly. Countless mystical beasts unconsciously puffed out their chests. Many of their waists that could not stand up straight due to their injuries had straightened without anyone noticing. After a while, Crane King finally opened his mouth and said softly, "It's not hard. It's not hard for us." Countless mystical beasts howled at the same time, the sound waves surging into the sky, causing the clouds to swirl. Many of them had tears rolling down their cheeks. The war had just ended, and the Holy Land of Tion Fa had another 100 years of time, but it was also in a dire situation. Originally, the 100-year war had become the norm. The Holy Land of Tion Fa had long predicted this and had many countermeasures. However, this sudden war had too many unexpected changes. Whether it was manpower or resources, they had expended 100 times more than in previous wars. Even if they recuperated for 100 years, they might not be able to recover. It was because of this that Yun Yang stayed for another month. During this entire month, the Beast Kings had ordered the Tion Fa Holy Land's countless precious herbs and treasures of heaven and earth to be harvested, all piled up in Yun Yang's hands. Sect leader Yun, we know that these are all good things. But in our hands, they are not very useful. If we eat them raw, it will be difficult for us to unleash the way of Monarch Union, and we will be poisoned instead. Chapter 12:26. The Holy Land of Tion Fa isn't suitable for refining pills and medicines either. Our cultivation system is fundamentally different from the mystical qi cultivated by humans. So, Sect Leader Yun, feel free to take all of them with you. Of course, if Sect Leader Yun is convenient and can share some of our healing medicine with us, we'll be eternally grateful. Yun Yang was duty-bound to agree to such a request without hesitation. Don't worry, Beast King. Yun Yang will take care of the mystical beast's recovery. The heaven and earth treasures provided by the Holy Land of Tion Fa were rare species that were hard to find in the outside world. Even to Emmy, they were rare items. As the source of its mother's body, the older they were, the better. The heaven and earth treasures from the Holy Land of Tion Fa were at least hundreds of thousands of years old. With such quality resources, Emmy's mystical ability could naturally turn them into countless medicinal pills. Not only healing medicine, but other things that could increase one's cultivation base, divine sense, soul, breakthrough realms, elevate realms, and upgrade one's innate talent could all be produced. There was as much as one could ask for. As for the spiritual medicine that Yun Yang had taken from the Holy Land of Tion Fa, there were 3,900 types of them that he had never gotten his hands on before, not to mention the quantity. That was 3,900 types of them. From then on, it could be said that as long as it was a heaven and earth treasure, as long as it was a spiritual medicine, Yun Yang had it all in the bound of universe. Of course, there was everything here, except for those special species that could only grow in the special realm, such as those that could only grow in the coldest places, those that could only grow in the most poisonous places, and those that could only be found in the underworld. Therefore, when it came to the matter of healing the injured in the Holy Land of Tion Fa, it had suddenly leveled up and there was still a large portion of Emmy left after the Chi of Karma had leveled up. It had agreed to Yun Yang's request without hesitation, which was a rare occurrence. In the following month, Emmy produced a massive amount of medicinal pills according to Yun Yang's request. However, Yun Yang had only given out a portion of them. It was not because he was stingy, but because if he had really taken out so many healing pills, it would only raise the suspicions of the Beast Kings. No matter how skilled the alchemist was, he would not be able to refine so many supreme-grade medicinal pills in a month's time. Other than the sea of medicinal herbs, Yun Yang had another gain as well. Plenty of rare metals and metals. Other than the massive amount of medicine, Yun Yang also had another gain. A lot of mystical metals. The remnants of the mystical beast's weapons had been collected by the mystical beasts in that battle, and passed to Yun Yang to be recast. Even if there were some that had been missed, they were few and insignificant. However, there were still many remnants of the mystical beast's weapons, piling up into a small hill that was 1,000 feet high. Mystical beasts' weapons had their own uses. Even if they were in perfect condition, they would still, even if they were intact. The higher level the mystical beast's weapons were, the more limited they would be. Whether it was a mystical weapon or a demonic weapon, broken or in perfect condition, They were still made of various metals. These were all things that Yunyang needed. As long as they were all of them, Emmy had a way to separate them into their most primitive form. Then, it would extract the essence within. Similar to the process of refining medicine, other than a small portion of the weapons that were reforged for Tian Fa's mystical beasts, most of the rest belonged to Yunyang. This was undoubtedly another windfall. Other than the 2 items mentioned above, Yunyang had an even bigger windfall from this battle. The demonic cores of the mystical beasts. The mystical beasts in the Holy Land of Tian Fa abhorred these things. Not only did they feel uncomfortable looking at them, they could not even bear to smell their scent. Therefore, the demonic cores left behind by the fallen mystical beasts all belonged to Yunyang as well. Other than the shattered and self-detonated ones, Yunyang had obtained a total of 130,000 demonic beast cores of various levels. This huge number was simply a sky-shattering amount of wealth. Yunyang had originally wanted to ask, since you all hate demonic cores so much, where did the demonic cores you got from killing the beasts go? King Bear replied nonchalantly, where else? We're useless, so we gave them to the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th level fellows to practice on and beat them all up. Yunyang felt like he was struck by lightning at this answer. Such a huge amount of wealth, yet you all gave it to the lower-level mystical beasts to beat them up. Can you be any more wasteful? Other than the 3 items mentioned above, there were actually other items such as the demonic beast's fur, bones, and even the bodies of higher-level mystical beasts that were of extraordinary value. However, Yunyang had directly given up on this item. The battle had been too brutal. The mystical beasts had suffered heavy losses, but how much better could the demonic beasts have suffered? Basically, there were no intact bodies of the demonic beasts that had perished. Instead, there were piles of meat paste that could be seen everywhere. Naturally, there was no such thing as a complete hide or fur. Occasionally, some of the demonic beasts' fur could be collected, but they were mostly the remains of saint kings and saint emperors. As for those of a lower level, there was basically nothing left of them. Yunyang had already known that Tian Fa had suffered heavy losses, but during the 1 month that he had stayed in the Holy Land to refine pills and forge weapons, he had heard the reports of the various clans' losses. Only then did he feel shocked. Yunyang could clearly see that every beast king was trembling when they heard the reports, their eyes brimming with tears. The Black Eagle tribe had self-detonated more than 7,000 mystical beasts of 9th level and above, and 600 king-level mystical beasts. As for the other flying clans, their losses were basically similar to the Black Eagle tribe. The Bear tribe and other different clans had lost more than 20,000 warriors. The Lion tribe and others had suffered similar losses. All in all, the Tian Fa Holy Land had lost more than 200,000 mystical beasts in the short span of 3 days of battle. After confirming this huge number, the beast kings of the various clans felt like their hearts were being pierced by a knife. This was the result of Yunyang's participation in the battle from the 2nd day, participating in the treatment of the injured, providing weapons, and even replacing the beast kings to attack the Gate of Sky Demon and turn the tide. Otherwise, this number would have been doubled. At the very least, the beast kings of the various clans would have fallen before the final moment arrived. A Pyrrhic victory. Bear King saw the huge number of casualties and his majestic body trembled like a blade of grass in the wind. A low, trembling growl escaped his throat. Tian Fa Holy Land. After this battle, we have lost all of our core forces. Crane King's face was also filled with desolation. 100 years later or 70 to 80 years later, when the Gate of Sky Demon opens again, at that time sigh. He heaved a long sigh. The other beast kings' faces were also visibly dejected. It was obvious. This battle had caused the Tian Fa Holy Land to lose all of their core forces. There was no way for them to continue, and their strength was cut off. In the next few decades, there was no time for them to grow. When the war broke out again, they could only rely on their top forces to hold on, and there would be the additional danger of almost no rest. They could only keep holding on until they could not hold on anymore. But in such a battlefield where they were fighting with their lives at all times, who could fight for 3 days and 3 nights? If there was no replacement, no room for a buffer, with only the strength of the Tian Fa Holy Land's upper echelons, they might not even be able to hold on for a day. In the next 100 years of war, the fall of the Gate of Sky Demon was almost a foregone conclusion. Today is Brother Ling Mou's birthday. Let us wish Brother a happy birthday. Thank you, Brother, for your unwavering support these few years. Brother has worked hard. GT. Chapter 12:27. Yun-yang looked at the Beast King's distress and said softly, "Leave it to me to think of a solution for the next opening of the Heaven Demon's door." Crane King chuckled bitterly. "We thank sect leader Yun for his kindness, but what else can we do?" Yun-yang smiled. "The Holy Land of Tian-Fa has so many treasures of heaven and earth, and all the kings have given them to me. If I don't think of a way to solve the Holy Land of Tian-Fa's problem, it won't be right. I'll try to research and see if there's any medicinal pill that can improve one's aptitude, what pill can advance quickly without any consequences, what pill can improve one's cultivation base faster." Yun-Yang's face was full of confidence and kindness. "All these can be done by us humans, but it's rarely used on mystical beasts. In my opinion, it's still doable. Of course, there will be some pain during the process of consuming the medicinal pill. This is unavoidable." The eyes of Bear King and the others were as bright as the sun when they heard this. "Sect leader Yun, are you serious?" Crane King's voice was trembling. "Of course." Yun-yang immediately thought of the cultivation base enhancing medicinal pills that Dong Qitian had refined for him. It was an exhilarating feeling. It was better to be happy alone than with everyone else. As for medicinal pills suitable for mystical beasts, even if the medicinal pills suitable for humans were not suitable for mystical beasts, there was still Emmy. As long as Emmy was willing to help, everything could be easily solved. With a thought, Yun-yang took out 2 small bottles. "I have such spiritual medicine with me. I can try it and see if the medicinal pills used on humans to improve their cultivation base are effective on mystical beasts." Crane King gripped the 2 bottles tightly, his voice urgent. "What level is it suitable for?" Yun-yang said, "When I use this medicinal pill, it's only suitable for heaven mystic level. After consuming it, one can cross a realm and advance to the level of supreme overnight. If it's consumed by a supreme, it can advance to the level of honor. However, the effect will be diminished when consumed by those above honor. Then it can only advance by 2 levels at most. Of course, there's still a chance to advance to the level of saint. However, this possibility isn't high. In the path of cultivation, the further one goes, the harder it is to improve. This is how it should be." Crane King's eyes glowed. "Enough. That's enough." He muttered to himself, "Our 7th and 8th grade Xian beasts are roughly equivalent to the sky Xian beasts of the human race. Moreover, most of the 7th and 8th grade Xian beasts did not participate in this battle. If the 7th grade Xian beasts can use elixirs to advance to the 9th grade Xian beasts, then they will have a great chance. If they are lucky enough to advance to the 9th grade Xian beasts, then it will be even better. If it exceeds the 10th grade," he grinned and said excitedly, "then it's possible to make up for my shortcomings and make up for my shortcomings. This is a great thing, a great thing." The Crane King's mouth was very long. When he grinned, his upper and lower lips were almost 3 feet apart. His sharp mouth became like a pair of scissors, which was very comical. But at this moment, no one laughed. Everyone's expression was solemn and heavy. The results of the experiment were really good. It was unknown whether it was because the mystical beast's physical endurance far exceeded that of the human race, or some other reason. In short, among the mystical beasts who participated in the experiment, more than 20 of the 7th and 8th level mystical beasts leaped to the 9th level overnight, and 2 of them directly broke through to the peak of the 9th level. Only 1 mystical beast died because its body could not withstand the pressure. The Beast Kings were grinning from ear to ear at the result. The Beast Kings were all intelligent people. How could they not know that using medicinal pills to enhance one's cultivation base would be accompanied by a certain degree of danger? They had long anticipated the casualties of the mystical beasts who consumed the medicine, and even imagined that more than half of the mystical beasts who participated in the experiment would die or be injured. Now that only 1 mystical beast had met with an accident, it was truly a blessing from the heavens. According to the Eagle King's words, it's normal to encounter a certain degree of danger in the process of enhancing one's cultivation base with the help of medicinal pills. If one could reach the pinnacle just by sleeping, wouldn't cultivation be easy? Who would still be willing to work so hard? This medicinal pill is really effective. It's a divine pill. The Crane King grabbed Yun-Yang's hand and refused to let go. Sect Leader Yun, we know it's difficult, but we won't ask for much. You just have to give us 100,000 or 80,000. The Bear King's large paw grabbed Yun-Yang's hand and shook it repeatedly. 180,000. Yun-Yang coughed. Although he could mass-produce this item and had never thought of hiding it from the Beast Kings right from the start, it was still a little too much for the other party to ask for 180,000 right off the bat. Idiot! The Crane King glared at the Bear King. What nonsense are you spouting? How can you say 100,000 or 80,000? He turned to Yun Yang and said with a grin, Sect Leader Yun, don't listen to this bastard. He only knows how to spout nonsense and doesn't know his limits. 100,000 or 80,000 is too much for us. We actually only need 10 or 20,000. He stared at Yun Yang's expression helplessly and was ready to change his words at any time, but finally he said, that will do. 10 or 20,000. Yun Yang frowned as he calculated in silence. To be fair, this was not a small amount. Even if it was calculated based on the success rate of the Bound of Universe's most famous alchemist, he would not have to do anything else for a long period of time. He would only be refining pills all day long. If he still had the time to be distracted, it would mean that there was something fishy going on and it would arouse suspicion. It would be illogical. However, Yun Yang realized that he seemed to have overlooked an important point. He still had plenty of time. There was plenty of buffer. These medicinal pills did not have to be delivered in a few days. There was still about 100 years' time. If that was the case, 10 or 20,000 was actually not a lot. Yun Yang, however, had to pretend to think for a long time. After a while he said, 10 or 20,000 then. I agree. I have some experience in the art of refining pills. As long as I'm given some time, I can still refine them. I'll send them to you in batches after this. It won't delay the Sacred Land's 100-year holy war. Right. I need a token that allows me to travel freely between the Sacred Land of Tian Fa. I might not have to come personally then. After all, it's 10 or 20,000 medicinal pills. I'll need at least 10 years to refine them all. Crane King's heart was filled with regret when he heard Yun Yang's words. In Crane King's mind, 10 or 20,000 was already too much. At the same time, he was trying to smooth things over for Bear King. After all, Bear King had asked for 70 or 80,000 pills. If he directly lowered the number to below 10,000, it would inevitably agitate Bear King. He was even prepared to reduce the number greatly after Yun Yang said that it was impossible for him to do it after asking for such an exorbitant price. In Crane King's mind, a reasonable number would be around 1,000 or 3,000 or 4,000. Even if it was lower, it would be acceptable. After all, anyone with a little common sense would know that the medicinal pills Yun Yang had offered were all supreme-class spiritual pills. Not to mention the Sacred Land of Tian Fa. Even the famous celestial luck banner upper-class sects in the Bound of Universe might not have many of them. Who would have thought that sect leader Yun had only hesitated for a moment before agreeing to it? He had even said that 10 or 20,000 spiritual pills could be completely refined in about 10 years. Could it be that he had asked for too little? Chapter 12:28. If he had known, he would not have stopped Bear King. Even if he could not get 70 to 80,000 pills, it would be great if he could get 20 or 30,000 more. Regret. It was too late for regrets. Without saying a word, Bear King slapped Crane King's head, causing him to stumble forward and almost bite the ground. Bear King's slap had succeeded, but he still scolded. What the F***CK can you do? You idiot! Crane King was infuriated. Just as he was about to get up, he saw the other Beast Kings looking at him in disdain and scolding him together. Idiot! Crane King's face twitched, but he wanted to cry. It was all his fault, but he could not defend himself. Yun Yang laughed. Everyone, you don't have to be like this. I've gained a lot from your precious land this time. Enough to refine countless medicines. No matter how many I refine, I'll give them to the Sacred Land first. Although the spiritual medicine to elevate one's cultivation base has practical value, it's not as solid as the cultivation base obtained through regular cultivation. The Sacred Land was forced by the situation, but I really don't need it for long. The Beast King smiled sheepishly. Sect leader Yun is right. We're inexperienced. We've made a fool of ourselves. Yun Yang stayed here for a month and basically treated all the injured mystical beasts. He was like a Buddha to all and was sought after by everyone. When the day of his departure came, he returned with 2 sleeves full of demonic wind. He also learned about the countless kinds of strange metals of the remaining demon soldiers, the almost astronomical number of demon cores, and the huge amount of karma energy he collected from killing countless demon beasts in this battle. What else could it be if it wasn't Two Sleeves demon wind? It was just demonic wind. There was no demonic chi at all. Sect leader Yun, if there's nothing important, why don't you stay a little longer and wait for our king's return? No matter what, you have to meet him before you leave. The Beast Kings tried to persuade Yun Yang to stay. However, Yun Yang had already made up his mind. After all, he had already spent a month and 6 days in Tian Fa. This period of time was not short. If he delayed any longer, he might really make a mistake. I do have something important to do, Yun Yang said. If I'm free in the future, I'll definitely return to the sacred land to drink and chat with all of you. What was the point of waiting for others to thank him? This way, when they meet again in the future. Wouldn't it be much better than accepting his thanks now? Bear King immediately interrupted. Speaking of wine. Cough cough, sect leader Yun, don't forget to bring good wine for us the next time you come. Ha ha ha. All the Beast Kings roared with laughter. Yun Yang, dressed in his usual purple robe, left under the grand farewell of the mystical beasts from the Tian Fa Holy Land. This time, it was an inexplicable feeling that brought him to the Holy Land of Tian Fa by chance. Yun Yang still felt like he was in a dream when he thought about it. If it was purely based on his gains, the items he had obtained from the Holy Land of Tian Fa would be enough for the residents of 9 Supremes to spend lavishly for 1,000 years, and they would still be rich. Moreover, it was pure consumption for the next 1,000 years. There was no need for any further income. In terms of quality, the various treasures of heaven and earth that Yun Yang had obtained this time were more than enough to support a sect like the residents of 9 Supremes until the end of time. After all, any material here was a renewable resource. However, Yun Yang was not in the mood to sort it out. All his thoughts were now on the chi of karma that he had obtained, in his deific consciousness. They were all in the endless divine art that he had made great strides forward. Yun Yang suddenly realized that the extent of his improvement this time was unprecedented. There might not even be another improvement that was greater than this one in the future. This time, not only did his endless divine art break through to the 6th stage, even his mystical chi cultivation base had broken through to the pinnacle of 4th level Saint Emperor. He had directly ascended to the realm of Supreme Saint. Advancing from a first-tier Saint Emperor to the realm of Supreme Saint was already a huge leap. Not to mention the fact that Yun Yang's current cultivation base was not a first-tier Saint Emperor, but a second-tier Saint Emperor. Such a huge leap was frightening and appalling to hear. The sudden increase in his cultivation base was something to be happy about, but Yun Yang was more concerned about the endless divine art. This cultivation method that was the hardest to improve had also made a huge leap due to this opportunity. With Yun Yang's current cultivation base, combined with the combination of his mystical chi cultivation base and endless divine art, even if he used "what harm is there in slaughtering the world," he would only consume 1/10 of his own power. In other words, a casual strike from Yun Yang now could almost reach the power of the strike that he had used at the risk of his life a month ago. Moreover, this was only the lower limit. After all, it was only 1/10 of the power, which was not much different from the usual consumption. How could such a shocking improvement not be ecstatic? Furthermore, Yun Yang's current rate of improvement had yet to end. The amount of karmic chi he had gained this time had caused the endless divine art, which was the most difficult to improve by leaps and bounds every day. Up until now, he had at least reached 1/10 of the 7th level of the endless divine art. It was unimaginable and unbelievable. Once he left the holy land of Tian Fa, Yun Yang soared into the sky and turned into a cloud form. After he had hidden himself among the clouds, his mind entered his deific consciousness space. What greeted his eyes was the large leaf that had just sprouted from Emmy. Feeling Emmy's elation, Yun Yang's heart was filled with joy. The lotus leaf was different as well. It had just sprouted, but it had already reached the stage of completion. The leaf was thick and wide, its color deep. It fluttered leisurely in the deific consciousness space, filled with a sense of serenity. The content of the 6th stage of the endless divine art was presented in the form of lines of golden words as usual, floating above the deific consciousness space before merging into it. I walk the path of the secular world, 3,000 worlds are leveled with a single slash. Who would question the merits and demerits of this life? The 6 petals of the golden lotus dye the sky red. That was the mantra of the 6th stage of the endless divine art. Yun Yang chewed on each word, carefully pondering the meaning of each sentence. The true meaning of the divine art flowed endlessly into his heart like flowing water, turning into a deep memory and understanding that would never be erased. I walk the path of the secular world. 3,000 worlds are leveled with a single slash. Yun-yang could not help but be fascinated by the boundless domineering aura within. 3,000 worlds are leveled with a single slash. This domineering aura is a level higher than slaughtering the entire world. Yun-yang mused and murmured. But with my current cultivation base, I'm only at the level of a first-level supreme saint. How can I achieve the level of 3,000 worlds are leveled with a single slash? There's no comparison between the two, and there's no practicality. No, perhaps I should say that I'm still far from the level where I can unleash its ultimate power with this cultivation method. Yun-yang pondered. The next moment, the golden words in the air disappeared. After a while, a silhouette slowly emerged, holding a saber in his hand. Other than the blurred face, everything else could be seen clearly. Every movement and every slight turn was pleasing to the eye. Clear and distinct. The first form of the style was a saber that could not be traced even with countless complicated movements. After this stroke, a door glowing with a holy white light appeared in the starry sky. Inside the door was an endless purple mist. As for the second form, there was only the shape of a saber left in the vast starry sky after the gleam of the saber's light. It was the same one in two forms as before, imprinted directly into the deepest part of Yun-yang's heart. In just an instant, Yun-yang felt that he had been cultivating this saber style for hundreds and thousands of years and was already extremely familiar with it. With a single thought, the saber could be executed perfectly. The sixth form of the Destiny Blade is also one in two forms, but it's different from before when I study it in detail. Previously, I still needed to familiarize myself with it, but now, this style seems to be given directly. The moment I receive it, it's the moment I've mastered it. Yun-yang looked at the name of the last form and could not help smiling. As expected. The first form of the Destiny Blade's sixth form, the Door of Tao, and the second form, the horizontal blade of the starry sky. Everything else aside, just the names of these two forms were filled with indescribable dominance. The chant for the sixth form of the Destiny Blade. The mundane world in dreams is difficult beyond dreams, the path of Tao is not easy. The saber crosses the heavens and the starry sky, the heroes of the world dare not speak. I've finally reached the sixth level. Chapter 12:29. With this thought in mind, Yun-yang felt an indescribable sense of melancholy in his heart. Thinking of his own cultivation process, saber truth, Destiny Blade and endless divine art, it did not feel very difficult to grow from nothing, and it was even easier to go from the first to the second stage. It was only when he reached the fifth stage that he felt the difficulty. Overall, Yun-yang had only spent about 2 years from the first stage to the fifth stage, and he had already completed it. However, it had taken him 6 years to break through to the sixth stage, and the resources he had consumed were far more than the previous 6 years. Judging from his current progress, the seventh stage that followed would be even more difficult. As for the eighth and ninth stage that followed, Yun-yang could not imagine it. He did not even dare to imagine it. I really don't know how long I've been cultivating this way. No matter what, it was great news that he had broken through to the sixth stage now. After this incident, Yun-yang's cultivation base and capability had not simply doubled, but had risen wildly. No, it should be said that he had made several consecutive somersaults, and his capability had increased by more than 10 times. This knowledge made Yun-yang feel a little satisfied for a short time. At least for now. He could be considered as someone who was neither too big nor too small in the entire bound of universe. With his current cultivation base and capability, Yun-yang felt that his residence of 9 Supremes had the possibility to at least ascend to the upper-class celestial luck banner. I hope those fellows can also work harder. With such a breakthrough, Yun-yang had more confidence in his ability to protect himself during this trip to the demonic race. It was a promising prospect. Looking at the boundless treasures of heaven and earth in his deific consciousness, Yun-yang was delighted. This time it was so worth it. Not only had he helped the holy land of divine punishment that he respected, but he had also gained so many good things. Thinking of the golden armored ants, when he let them seep their air of vitality into the spring, he did not give them a portion as promised. Feeling the heroic self-destruction of the 300 golden armored ants, Yun-yang gave them 2 portions. All of them were left at the bottom of the water, and he could feel that the spring water that gushed out was different from before. It was full of life force. With this gravel, the golden armored ants would be able to grow rapidly. Along the way, Yun Yang found some scattered beasts to practice his skills while he searched for treasures of heaven and earth. Yun Yang did not walk quickly, but he still managed to cover a few thousand miles in a day. Overall, his pace was not slow at all. In spite of this, Yun Yang quickly realized a problem, or rather, a puzzle. Logically speaking, the celestial demonic gateway in the Holy Land of Tian would never allow any demons to enter the bound of universe with such a tight lockdown. In that case, where in the world did the demons that had entered the Xianhuang world come from? No matter how he thought about it, he was still unable to make sense of it. With this question in mind, Yun Yang finally saw the Crimson Soul Mountain with his own eyes after half a month, as he walked further and further into the desolate land. For tens of millions of years, the Xianhuang world's understanding or knowledge of the Blood Soul Mountain was sparse. However, the number of legends related to it was uncountable. Countless wandering poets had left behind a huge amount of words and ink because of this. Poems, paintings, stories, and rumors were even more restricted. Even the common people of the Xianhuang world knew about the Crimson Soul Mountain. The key to the battle between humans and the demon race was related to the survival of the human race. As the demon race grew stronger day by day, the human race also kept advancing. One invaded with all its might, wanting to expand its territory and space for survival, while the other tried to stop the human race at all costs to defend its sovereignty. And the battlefield of the battle was at the Crimson Soul Mountain. A man should not sink into business, fight the Crimson Soul Mountain with a sword and a horse. I'm willing to be a ghost in the desert. I don't want to be a rich man in my hometown. This life and this body for the Xianhuang world, fight until my temples turn gray. 9 million miles of the Crimson Soul Land, all are good men of my hometown. A man should cultivate in the Xianhuang world, pointing his sword at the Crimson Soul Mountain. Die without a smile, leave your name in the world. The Crimson Soul Mountain had always been the supreme battlefield of the Xianhuang world. It was also the dreamland of the entire Xianhuang world's martial artists. Why was the Xianhuang world's martial world so peaceful? Firstly, it was naturally because of the extremely harsh and impartial supervision of the heavenly Tao. Secondly, it was because of the Crimson Soul Mountain. Once the Crimson Soul Mountain was lost, the Xianhuang world would be plunged into misery and suffering. There would be no more days of peace. This was a trial that concerned the continuation of misfortune and blessings. It was a trial that could not be lost. The Crimson Soul Mountain was too much of a burden for the humans of the Xianhuang world to bear. Yet, they had to try their best to bear it. As a result, an unwritten rule had appeared. Even if it was the hatred of killing one's father or stealing one's wife, as long as a martial artist came to the Crimson Soul Mountain to fight against external enemies, they would have to let go of their grudges. For millions of years in the Xianhuang world, all the martial artists who died in the battle at the Crimson Soul Mountain would be favored by their families for 3 generations. This unwritten rule was proposed by a saint monarch in the past. If one's martial style is awe-inspiring, one's heroic spirit will never fade. One will be favored for 3 generations, and be respected by the whole world. The moment this suggestion was put forward, it was passed. A martial artist's life might not only depend on the great Tao, but also not for fame and fortune. No one would object to this suggestion. However, soon after, another saint monarch suggested, the martial world is vast and mighty, the heroic spirit should be continued, but only for 3 generations. It cannot be extended any further. Therefore, the Crimson Soul Mountain was a land of war, but it was also a land of glory. As he thought of this, he looked at the towering mountain hundreds of miles in front of him, stretching tens of thousands of miles into the clouds and dividing the continent into 2. His heart was filled with respect. This was the backbone of mankind. The real one. However, a question arose. How should he go over? In the past, the Crimson Soul Mountain had yet to be built. At the end of the ultimate war between humans and demons, the 9-9 demonic formation, which had sacrificed 99 saint emperors of the human race to set up and killed countless demons, was finally broken by the 8 saint emperors of the demon race. However, the great loss of the demon race's vitality was already a foregone conclusion. The human race had won this ultimate war and had even built the Crimson Soul Mountain, blocking the demon race to the other side of the mountain. However, while the Crimson Soul Mountain prevented the demon race from invading the Xianhuang world, it also prevented the human race from going to the demon race. Did he really have to break into the perilous old land of the 9-9 demonic formation, the only known passage connecting the 2 realms? There were two sides to the conversation. The residents of 9 Supremes. At the moment when Yunyang broke through to the level of Supreme Saint, the spiritual qi in the residents of 9 Supremes experienced another tsunami-like change. The spiritual qi from all directions arrived in a flash, filling the entire residence of 9 Supremes tightly. Due to the abrupt eruption of spiritual qi this time and the intensity, many disciples who had just started cultivating were overwhelmed. Their bodies could not withstand the impact of such a huge amount of spiritual qi. The spiritual qi that was so dense that it was almost tangible dyed the entire residence of 9 Supremes purple. The spiritual qi of such intensity lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Then, it gradually faded into nothingness. For a moment, the crowd did not know whether the change was a blessing or a curse. They could not help worrying about their gains and losses. However, when they felt it carefully, they realized that the spiritual qi density in the residence of 9 Supremes was at least 3 times higher than 3 days ago. At the highest point of the main peak of the residence of 9 Supremes, the intermediate class celestial luck banner that symbolized the residence of 9 Supremes' current status had been uprooted at the first moment of the onslaught of spiritual qi, fluttering in the wind. After 3 days of extreme spiritual qi's nourishment, the words residence of 9 Supremes on the celestial luck banner had turned into the purest purple gold color. As the celestial luck banner fluttered in the wind, it emitted rays of golden light that illuminated the entire residence of 9 Supremes. Dong Qitian, who was cultivating nearby, was shocked by the change. Looking at the celestial luck banner that was uprooted and unmoving in the air, his face was solemn. The celestial luck banner was now hovering in the air. It was not inserted into the mountain peak, and the space 100 feet below was filled with illusory clouds and mist. It was only when it was 100 feet above the ground that the flagpole transformed into a purple-gold color, supporting the celestial luck banner above it. At least, as far as Dong Qitian knew, a sect with an intermediate-class celestial luck banner would never have such a situation. A few moments later, several silhouettes flew over. Luo Dajiang and the others, as well as the elders of the Phoenix Cry sect, had obviously sensed the huge change in the celestial luck banner and rushed over to see what was going on. As they arrived, Dong Qitian disappeared quietly. With his cultivation base, no one would have noticed his presence. Looking at the residents of 9 Supreme Celestial Luck Banner, Elder Li of the Phoenix Cry sect's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His face filled with disbelief and disbelief. The others had the same expression as well, looking at the residents of 9 Supreme Celestial Luck Banner as if they had seen a ghost. Luo Dajiang and the others, on the other hand, were also shocked, but there was nothing unusual about them. However, this was a sign of their shallow knowledge, as they did not know what the change in front of them meant. This is... Gon Tianyan swallowed with difficulty. Looking at the Celestial Luck Banner, his voice was hoarse. The Celestial Luck Banner. Does this mean that the residence of 9 Supremes has a Supreme Saint expert? Elderly swallowed and murmured. And it's not just a beginner-level Supreme Saint. That's 100 feet above the ground. Luo Dajiang and the others were clueless about this, so they asked one after another. The Celestial Luck Banner standing in front of the mountain gate only means that the banner recognizes the sect's current qualification, but the Celestial Luck Banner standing in the air is the image of an upper-class sect, which is also the Celestial Luck that I mentioned just now. Generally speaking, this will only happen when a Supreme Saint expert appears in a sect, and it must be the founder or the sect leader who has reached this realm. Gon Tianyan stared at Luo Dajiang and asked, "Has anyone among you broken through to the Supreme Saint realm?" Luo Dajiang and the others were still dumbfounded, stunned on the spot. The people of the residence of 9 Supremes were also puzzled. A Supreme Saint? Who has broken through to the Supreme Saint realm? The strongest among us is only a beginner-level Saint Emperor, which is still a long way from the Supreme Saint realm. That's a whole major level. Dong Qitian? Dong Qitian is a stingy man, and his cultivation base is beyond everyone's understanding, but he can't even be considered as a member of the residence of 9 Supremes, let alone the founder. It can't be him. The people of Phoenix Cry sect left very soon. They felt that they had been beaten black and blue, and all that was left in them was a sense of loss. The residence of 9 Supremes was really a group of geniuses, from top to bottom, from big to small, they were all geniuses. However, who among this group of geniuses had broken through to the Supreme Saint realm? Wasn't this a little too exaggerated? In the entire residence of 9 Supremes, there seemed to be no one over the age of 50. Who had reached the level of Supreme Saint? It was inexplicable. As for all the middle-class sects under the Sacred Heart Palace, including the top 3 sects, none of them could stand tall in the air with their celestial luck banner. While Supreme Venerables were the top combat power in the Bound of Universe, the top 3 sects with mid-class celestial luck banners had at least 1 or 2 Supreme Venerables. However, these Supreme Venerables were rarely the founders of the sects or the current leaders. Naturally, they would not be treated like this. Therefore, those who wanted to make their celestial luck banner appear in the state of celestial luck could only appear if they were able to rise to the position of an upper-class sect. For example, the General Commerce League, which had successfully advanced because it had 4 supreme experts, now had such a celestial luck banner. However, when they were still a middle-class sect before their promotion, even if they were the top of the middle-class sect, their celestial luck banner was still no different from other middle-class sections. However, the Residence of 9 Supremes was only ranked last among the middle-class sects now. How could it have such a celestial luck banner? The Residence of 9 Supremes was only newly established, and there were quite a number of people who could be considered founders, such as Yun Yang, Luo Dajiang, and even Qian Duoduo. However, the people of Phoenix Cry sect felt that they knew the Residence of 9 Supremes very well. Even Yun Yang, who was the strongest among them, had only recently advanced to the level of Supreme Saint. How could it be possible for him to rise to the level of Supreme Saint in such a short period of time? Absolutely preposterous. Absolutely preposterous. In the temporary base of the Phoenix Cry sect, someone in the Residence of 9 Supremes has broken through to the level of Supreme Saint, and it must be one of the 12 founders. Only Yun Yang, the Demiurge Flawed 10, and brother Qian Duoduo can be considered the founders of the Residence of 9 Supremes. Other than Yun Yang, Kong Luoyue, and Lan Ruojuan who brought their disciples out for training, the other 9 people are all here. Who could it be? Sure, Wuchen hasn't come out of seclusion yet. With his method of destroying his foundation and reforging his sword heart, even if he can become a Supreme Saint, it won't be done in a short period of time. Besides, we're all nearby. If he broke through, we wouldn't have failed to sense it. Similarly, the others haven't broken through to the level of Supreme Saint either. Then, it can only be the other 3 people who aren't in the Residence of 9 Supremes. It's either Lan Ruojuan or Kong Luoyue. If it's not the 2 of them, it must be sect leader Yun Yang. Then, who's more likely? Everyone looked at each other and saw the same answer in each other's eyes. Yun Yang, sect leader Yun. He must have broken through to the level of Supreme Saint due to some kind of fortuitous encounter. Only Yun Yang, who has broken through to the level of Supreme Saint, is the sect leader, the first founder, and the person who named the name of the Residence of 9 Supremes, would have such signs of success. But when Yun Yang went out, he was just a first-grade Saint Emperor. It's only been a few days since then. Has it been 2 months? How could he have broken through to the level of Supreme Saint in such a short time? That's a whole realm. Anyone would think it's impossible, but what about the celestial luck banner? It can't be faked. This matter directly shocked everyone from the Phoenix Cry sect out of their wits, and they were at a loss. Everyone's feelings were extremely complicated. All along, although the people of the Phoenix Cry sect lived in the Residence of 9 Supremes as guests, they always had a sense of superiority in their hearts. We're the sect competing for the top seat of the middle-class celestial luck banner, and we're also the sect that will ascend to the upper-class celestial luck banner. The Residence of 9 Supremes barely managed to climb to the last place of the middle-class celestial luck banner because of luck. We're just at the bottom. Therefore, even though the environment of the Residence of 9 Supremes was much better than that of the Phoenix Cry sect, everyone subconsciously had a condescending attitude when they watched and toured. Even if you have a deep foundation, an excellent environment, and rich resources, you'll still need at least hundreds or thousands of years to catch up to the Phoenix Cry sect. Now, however, with the addition of the celestial luck banner in the air, the pride of the Phoenix Cry sect was immediately shattered. Not to mention anything else, the founder was amazing, the sect leader was amazing, and he had brought the entire sect forward with his own strength. The spiritual chi in the Residence of 9 Supremes was already more than 5 times that of the Phoenix Cry sect. The disciples of the Residence of 9 Supremes were all geniuses, so how long would it take to catch up to the Phoenix Cry sect? The answer was depressing just thinking about it. At the same time, for the first time, Dong Qiqian took the initiative to gather the Demiurge Flawed 10 and Qian Duoduo, holding a meeting. As you can see, the residence of 9 Supremes has shown signs of celestial luck. This can only happen when Yun-Yang ascends to the level of Supreme Saint, so the residence of 9 Supremes has officially entered a stage of rapid development. However, if you want to become a high-rank sect, this kind of chaotic atmosphere is not enough. Dong Qitian did not beat around the bush either, going straight to the point and going straight to the point. All the disciples are first-generation disciples. There's no difference, and there's a huge hidden danger. The sect's facilities are far inferior to those of a true famous sect. The rewards and punishments, the elixir pavilion, the spiritual herb garden, and the ranking of disciples need to be reorganized. There's also the martial repository, the location of the ancestral temple, weapons and so on. You have to think of other ways to perfect them. Dong Qitian had only given a simple and general reminder and did not bother about anything else. To be honest, Dong Qitian felt that his reminder was unnecessary. These things were the basic structure of a sect. It could be small or just a prototype, but a sect that wanted to develop could not do without them. Dong Qitian left after he finished speaking. However, Luo Dajiang and the others, along with Qian Duo, had a meeting all night long. I haven't thought about how to develop the Blood Soul Mountain, so I'm going to overdo it. Apt. Mobile Reading Access, M. Chapter 1230. When it came to roaming the martial world and fighting strong enemies, Qian Duo was naturally not as good as Luo Dajiang and the others, but when it came to managing a sect and building all the facilities it needed, it was Qian Duo's specialty. Looking at the residence of 9 Supremes and the celestial luck banner showing the legendary celestial luck, Qian Duo was so excited as if he had taken a few hundred caddies of medicine. Everyone has their own specialties. I'm in charge of all this. You only need to assist me or provide manpower. Remember to listen to my arrangements. The next morning, Qian Duo, who had not slept all night, went down the mountain in high spirits. When he came back, he had already brought back a large group of craftsmen, who were still in high spirits and more excited than if they had been injected with chicken blood. Mark out this piece of land for me. Not too much, about 3 acres will do. And this side, about 3 acres as well, next to each other. Yes. This side needs 50 acres. Build a small building here, build a pavilion here, dig a pond here. Yes, build a building here as well, 10 acres of land will do. This is the focus. Expand our mountain range and expand it to 3,000 acres. While Qian Duo was extremely busy, he always maintained a state of mind that was never tired of it. He was truly like a Superman. The disciples of the 9 peaks must be dressed neatly. From now on, personal seniority needs to be strictly divided. The founders will wear purple robes like the boss, the first generation of disciples will wear yellow, the second generation will wear black, the third generation will wear blue, the fourth generation will wear red, the fifth generation will wear green, and so on. Major Domo Qian, what if there are a dozen generations of disciples in the future? You've used up all the 7 colors now. What will happen after that? The 7 colors I've set are the main colors. Below that, you only need to match the cuffs and necklines of different colors with different clothes of different colors. These are easy to do. It's clear at a glance, and there won't be any mistakes. Qian Duo had a well-thought-out plan. His words were eloquent and convincing, yet his words had substance and he spoke with certainty. In fact, he had wanted to do this for a long time, but Yun-Yang found it troublesome and was afraid that his disciples would have thoughts of leaving and delay their personal progress. But now, all of this was directly placed on the table. For Qian Duo, who had long planned this, it was just putting the plan in his mind into action. There was really no need to be long-winded. For example, he found over 1,000 tailors at one time, but they were all able to do their own thing. They were messy but not messy, and orderly. How big exactly? Make your clothes according to the measurements. After you're done, make 6 sets of clothes for each person from inside to outside. 2 sets for summer and autumn, 2 sets for winter and spring, and 2 sets for training clothes that are specially used for training and tempering the body. Pay attention to the different styles. Don't mix them up. Just 6 sets? Isn't that a little too little? These can only last for a year at most. Yes, I want them to wear it for a year. These little guys are growing up now. I wonder how much they will change after a year. This number is just right. Other than the older ones whose bodies are almost fixed, do this for everyone else. All right. Same goes for the shoes. Understood. Little Fatty jumped up and down, shouting until his throat was hoarse every day. However, he was never tired of it and continued shouting for days on end. To Qian Duo, building a sect with his own hands and watching it grow from scratch, especially since he was the one who had been the one to plan and manage the sect's basic construction from the beginning to the end, even drawing the blueprint and laying the foundation for everything. To him, this was already the greatest happiness in this lifetime. Although he was only the major domo in the residence of 9 Supremes, not the founder, not the leader, and not the main fighting force, even Yun Yang, who had personally founded the sect, did not feel as strong a sense of happiness and satisfaction as Little Fatty when the residence of 9 Supremes had developed to its current state. In fact, he was far from it, 10 or even 100 times behind. This was because this was Little Fatty's greatest obsession in this life. It was fresh and unwavering. All of his learning in the first half of his life, all of his pursuits in the second half, and all of his hard work were entangled in this. Other than this, there was nothing else. To Qian Duo, the top mystical cultivation method, being unrivaled in the world, being immortal. All of these did not matter. What he wanted was to create the glory of a sect with his own hands. It would be best if it was the top sect in the world. Then he would have no desires for 3 lifetimes. This was Qian Duo's Tao, a branch of the Commerce League's Tao and Shi Wuchen's Tao of the Sword. Each had their own path, but their destination was the same. Qian Duo was busy. Luo Dajiang and the others were busy as well, cultivating. Yun Yang's huge breakthrough had given them unprecedented stimulation and impact. When Qian Duo left in the morning, the 9 of them did not disperse but continued with a small meeting. Boss has entered the realm of Supreme Saint. Yi Tuo is still in closed-door cultivation, and his sword energy is getting stronger and stronger. Although he hasn't left the mountain yet, the sword energy that overflows from him can already affect the entire residence of 9 Supremes. It's foreseeable that he'll have a great improvement after coming out this time. The few of us, on the other hand, are too weak. We're lagging far behind. We have to catch up. Now that the spiritual qi in the residence of 9 Supremes is so rich, it's a great time to cultivate. I think that not only should we continue our previous special training, but we should also work harder and increase the difficulty. Besides cultivating, we should also continue sparring with each other. Luo Dajiang said, if we only maintain the current cultivation progress, I'm afraid that our disciples will catch up with us before we can improve our cultivation base. When the time comes that a master is not as good as a disciple, it will be a great disgrace. Luo Dajiang's words made the faces of the demiurge flawed 10 turn very ugly. We've noticed this as well. Tai Chingtsong's face was solemn. We've been living too comfortably recently. In the following period of time, Luo Dajiang and the others really cultivated with all their might. The intensity of their cultivation was so extreme that it was as if they wanted to train themselves to death. Every time they cultivated, they squeezed themselves with all their might. First, they unleashed a series of ultimate moves, which would basically deplete their mystical qi, inner energy, and physical strength within a quarter of an hour. Then they had to hold on with perseverance. As they held on, they recovered, and in the shortest time possible, they emptied themselves again and continued to hold on. It was not that there was no rest time at all, but it was used to answer the doubts of their disciples. Seeing that their masters were cultivating in such an extreme way, the true disciples of the residence of 9 Supremes followed suit, each of them sharpening themselves in a manner that was far beyond what they had been doing before. Naturally, the junior brothers and sisters who were below them felt the threat. Senior brothers and sisters' cultivation base has begun to leap again, leaving us further and further behind. What should we do? Train hard. Train hard. Train hard. From top to bottom, the residents of 9 Supremes had launched the most extreme cultivation mode. It doesn't matter if you don't adopt this cultivation method, because what awaits you is only elimination. If you don't want to be eliminated, you can only work hard and go to extremes. Even when they were eating, some of them were reciting the formula and going to their senior brothers and sisters with their bowls to ask questions they did not understand. Even when they were squatting, some disciples were constantly thinking about the direction of their cultivation and how to solve the difficulties they encountered. All of this caused Yun Yang to be shocked when he came back. Of course, this was a story for a long time to come. On the other side, Yun Yang transformed into wind and cloud again, intending to enter the demon realm directly from the sky. Transforming into wind and cloud, He was no different from being invisible. However, what baffled Yunyang was, when he transformed into wind and cloud and went to the highest point and was about to fly over the Bloody Soul Mountain, he suddenly felt an endless pressure coming from the sky. It was a unique pressure similar to that of the sky. It seemed to be warning that no one was allowed to pass through the sky. Since ancient times, no one had been able to fly over the peak of the Bloody Soul Mountain. But how could Yunyang give up? His wind and cloud had always been successful. Even if it was the power of heaven, it still belonged to nature. He did not believe that it could do anything to his wind and cloud transformation. Yunyang chose to continue floating up against the huge pressure. The manifestation of wind and cloud was unique indeed as it continued to rise against the might of heaven. However, with every few feet that he rose, the pressure would increase. This was due to the significant breakthrough in Yunyang's cultivation base and the endless divine art reaching the 6th tier. Not only did his cultivation base and combat power increase exponentially, but his physical body's ability to withstand the pressure was also much stronger than before. If it had been his previous weak physique, the current might of heaven would not have been able to withstand it. There are still about 5,000 feet from here to the top of the mountain. Yunyang saw that he had already passed the entrance of the Bloody Soul Mountain for a long time. Looking at the end of the sky, he felt very confident and the chance of victory was in his hands. Bearing the pressure, he flew up another 2,000 feet. At this height, he was almost 200,000 feet from the ground. Even if he ignored the mighty force of the heavens, just the hurricanes in the sky were enough to produce a cutting force that could tear apart a high-level cultivator. Yunyang judged that even a random gust of wind from this height could uproot a small patch of forest, leaving not a single blade of grass behind when it reached the ground. Even so, Yunyang could still bear the pressure and even had some energy to spare. However, at this time, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared in the sky. The bolt of lightning that had appeared out of nowhere was only as thick as a fingernail. It was twisted and seemed to be powerless. To Yunyang, who had been through the baptism of a heavenly tribulation, it was not even worth a glance. He could not even spare a glance at it, not even intending to dodge it. In spite of this, Yunyang howled in pain the moment he came into contact with the sudden flash of lightning. He was revealed in the sky at once, drifting back and forth amidst the hurricane as he plummeted. With his current cultivation base, he could not even control his body as he plummeted to the ground in a free fall under the shock of the lightning's power. It was not that Yunyang did not want to move, but he could not. His entire body was numb and he could not even move a finger. The only sense that worked was probably his sense of smell. When the lightning struck his body, his entire body was filled with an indescribable barbecued meat aroma. It was an exotic aroma that assaulted his nostrils. Yunyang himself wanted to take a few bites when he smelled it, let alone others. However, this seemed to be his own flesh. As Yunyang's thoughts raced, he quickly deduced that when the small bolt of lightning struck him, more than 80% of his body had been burnt and roasted. Otherwise, he would not have ended up like this. Other than his head that was not roasted, the rest of his body, from the neck down, any part of his body could be paired with a fine wine. Yunyang did not dare to think about the wonderful spot between his legs. Perhaps, the chicken and eggs would be destroyed at this moment. If Yunyang had not ascended to the realm of the Supreme Saint and had the ability to reconstruct his body and reconstruct his golden body, he would have been depressed to the point of committing suicide. Right now, I'm probably only left with my internal organs that haven't been completely burned. My head is still fine. On the Bloody Soul Mountain, at a height of about 90,000 feet, there was an obvious curved mountain pass. On both sides were cliffs that towered into the clouds. Only this place was slightly lower. At this height, there was a man dressed in white standing with his hands behind his back. His face was filled with a mocking smile as he looked at the fragrant body falling from the sky. He actually wants to fly over the forbidden land of heaven. No matter who he is, this old man is very impressed. It has been a long time since I have eaten fresh meat. Other than the strange giant condor that fell from the top when it was roasted, this old man has forgotten what meat tastes like these years. My luck is really good these days. It has been less than a year, what good luck. At this time, another man dressed in white appeared out of thin air. He chuckled and said, "You may be able to eat the giant condor again this time. It is most appropriate to compliment the shape of the condor. Congratulations." The eyes of the man dressed in white were half-lidded as he said coldly, "It seems that you have not remembered the lesson from last time. If you really make this old man angry, This old man will roast you and eat you. Do you think this old man would not dare to or not?"
The man dressed in white guffawed and said, "Brother, I have lost count of how many times I have said that I would roast me after so many years.
It is a pity that this old man has never seen you do it. Your mouth is just a... Do you want to try?" The man dressed in white's gaze changed abruptly, turning cold. At this moment, a sharp whistling sound came from the sky. Yun Yang's body had fallen 1,000 feet away. This child's luck is not bad. He has actually fallen directly to the bloody soul mouth. The man dressed in white had not finished his sentence when he lifted his hand lightly. A gentle breeze rose abruptly and gently held leader Yun, who was falling from a high altitude, in mid-air. It was a gentle breeze, without the slightest ripple, but it held Yun Yang's falling body steady, not moving an inch. Clap, clap, clap. A few pieces of fragrant meat fell from Yun Yang's body and fell to the ground. Then, an even more intense aroma spread in all directions. Remember the mobile version of the website. Chapter 343 Extreme Joy Begets Sorrow. Page 1/1. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1231. It smells King good. Not only does this child have an extraordinary cultivation base, he's also eaten plenty of heaven and earth treasures. It's like a fruit of life, a herb huandon pill, and a pile of immortal meat. The man in white from before sniffed vigorously, a helpless expression on his face. It's a pity that this old man is only good at talking. I've never tasted human flesh before. His expression was dejected, as if he regretted not being able to eat Yun Yang alive and swallow him into his stomach. "It's a human?" another white-robed old man said in surprise. "Nonsense. If the demons were roasted like this, they would have shown their true colors long ago. This child is quite something. It's already impressive that he could climb so high. Even this old man can't reach that height. What's more, this old man still hasn't figured out how he got there." The man in white from before rolled his eyes and said angrily, "What the F***ck are you talking about? This is strange, that's strange. Is this the main point now? Why don't you King put this child in while he's still breathing? Save him first and ask. If he's a spy, kill him directly. If he's a good person, save his life and form a good relationship with him." Of course, the more the better." The elder chuckled, unable to contain his joy. Usually, people like this carry plenty of food and drinks. It's a pity that this old man hasn't tasted the delicacies of the human world for more than 1,000 years. Yun Yang took it and walked in quickly. It turned out that there was a huge cave behind the two men. "If the demons come during this period of time, you'll hold them off." With a few words, he disappeared without a trace. Not long after the elder who brought Yun Yang into the cave, a whistling sound came from the opposite side. A golden silhouette dashed up like a meteor, his voice sonorous. "Let me pass. This is not the way." The elder in white who was left behind said coldly, "Please go back." The sonorous voice replied, "Whether it's the way or not, it's not up to you. We'll have to fight before we can decide." The wind whistled as the newcomer rushed forward and immediately engaged in a fierce battle with the old guard. Yun Yang was feeling very strange now. He felt like he was being cooked, exuding an incomparably seductive scent. This feeling was extremely pleasurable. Driven by his instincts, Yun Yang almost wanted to take a few bites of himself. It was too fragrant, too tempting, and hard to resist. Fortunately, he had maintained a sliver of clarity in his mind. He had been struck by the lightning in the sky, fallen to the ground, and had been caught by someone. Even the conversation between the two elders, everything that had transpired from start to finish, Yun Yang had heard and understood everything clearly. But there was nothing he could do. In spite of this, Yun Yang could no longer be bothered to think about his own condition. There was only shock and confusion in his heart. What kind of lightning was this? How could he be so domineering? When he was in the Tianxian continent, he had even faced the heavenly tribulation. Although it was a little difficult, it was far from his limit. But now, he was cooked by a lightning bolt that was only as thick as a finger. This reality, this result, was simply horrifying to think about, shocking to the point of death. If he had not been caught by the elder, he would definitely have turned into a skeleton when he landed, although there was still a chance of survival. It was said that the physical body was a treasured raft to cross the world, but it was common for a martial artist's physical body to be damaged. It was not rare for a broken limb to be reattached and regenerated. With Yun Yang's current cultivation base, it would only take a certain amount of time to reconstruct his body. In spite of this, Yun Yang treasured his physical body more than anyone else. This body carried too many of his experiences and memories. If it was not necessary, Yun Yang would never give it up. What was more, the reconstructed body would no longer have the immeasurable foundation that it had accumulated in the past. Countless treasures of heaven and earth and the essence of countless mystical beasts would all be gone. No one would be able to accept such an outcome. With what was left of his senses, Yun Yang felt his body being carried into a cave and placed gently on the ground. There were other spiritual vibrations in the cave. There should be other people. However, Yun Yang could not even turn his head, so he could only sense slightly. What he could get was limited. At this time a voice could be heard saying, "Old Wu, what smells so good? Cut it up and give it to me quickly. Good things should be shared with everyone. We've gotten the good taste, and we owe you a favor." The one who was carrying him was obviously Old Wu.
He laughed and said, "The good taste you speak of comes from a living person."
"Are you sure you want to eat it? If you insist on your original intention, there's no need to share. You can enjoy it alone. I'm happy to see that happen." The person who asked retched and said, "Can a living person smell so F*King good? F*CK. F*King hell." He did not speak again after his complaint. The others, however, did not seem to be interested in what was going on. They did not even bother to smile. Second Bro Wu did not mind it at all. He pulled Yun Yang to one side and flipped him over and over. Just as he did so, the rotten flesh on Yun Yang's body fell off, trembling, and the rich fragrance in the room grew even more intense. Old Wu clicked his tongue. "This fellow is really lucky. Look at this meat, smell this. I really F*King want to take a bite. It's really cooked, it's cooked, it only needs some salt and cumin to be eaten. What a F*King pity." Yun Yang rolled his eyes inwardly. He was rolling his eyes inwardly. Although Yun Yang's brain was not fully cooked, he did not even have the strength to roll his eyelids. He could only roll his eyes inwardly if he wanted to. Then, Yun Yang was inexplicably shocked. He could feel Old Wu's hands still moving up and down his body. Wherever his hands passed, there seemed to be a layer of something on his body. Then, he caught a faint whiff of a unique aroma that was different from the aroma of meat. He could not help being shocked. Is this fellow really going to eat me up? Then, he felt a cold liquid being poured into his mouth. It quickly turned into a line of ice and slid down his throat. Instantly, his entire body felt lighter, indescribably comfortable and carefree. Then, a force rose from his dantian and spread outwards rapidly. Wherever it went, his entire body felt terribly numb and itchy. Emmy had also used this opportunity to sneakily send out a stream of vitality to join the force. What water is this? It actually has the effect of regenerating the body. Yun Yang was an expert in healing. How could he not know that his current situation was developing in a favorable direction? The numb and itchy feeling that flowed all over his body was a sign of his limbs regaining vitality. The elder was obviously healing him, and the healing item he used was a sacred medicine of the field of injury, an extraordinary and divine item. After a while, another inexplicable force surged into Yun Yang's body. The shadow of the celestial luck banner was directly triggered by this force and appeared above Yun Yang's head. Old Wu was mumbling to himself, This child is actually a disciple of a sect with a celestial luck banner. Why is it only a middle-class sect? And what kind of sect is the residence of 9 Supremes? I don't seem to have heard of this name. He muttered to himself. There were many people around him, but no one answered him. That shouldn't be the case. This fellow is so young, he can't be more than 30 years old. How could he have the cultivation of a saint venerable? But how could a sect with such a powerful disciple be limited to a middle-rank sect? What's even more strange is that I've never heard of the sect he comes from. Could it be that I've been away from the world for a long time, and my cultivation base has advanced so quickly that even a supreme saint cultivator has become worthless? Then he cried out, No, how can this boy recover so quickly? Although the living water contains vitality and is a sacred medicine of healing, it shouldn't have such a strong effect,
right?
Someone next to him said impatiently, "Old Wu, change your damn talkative habit. Why are you yelling? If you speak again, I'll smash your mouth." A few people next to him responded at the same time, "Very well." It was difficult for two fists to fight against so many hands. Old Wu was outnumbered, so he shut his mouth obediently and dared not say another word. However, the surprise and astonishment in his heart grew stronger and stronger.
Was the vitality of this little fellow in his hand a little too tenacious?
He estimated that the effect of a bottle of living water would probably be able to regenerate half of this fellow's body and escape the danger of death.
However, that was the most it could do, because he still had to ask a few questions before deciding whether to completely cure him.
But now, looking at the speed of his recovery, it seemed that one bottle was actually enough for him to completely recover? How strange.
I, Old Wu, have been here for so many years and have always thought that I know the effect of the living water like the back of my hand.
How could there be such a change? The situation seems to have gone out of my control. Based on the current situation, this boy would probably not even need a day to recover to his original state. Then, there were still more surprises. The facts proved that Old Wu's judgment today was destined to be wrong again and again.
After a total of only 4 hours, Old Wu saw the young man on the ground blink his eyes, and then he opened his eyes, a pair of eyeballs rolling endlessly. Much of the rotten flesh on his body had become dry and cracked, like the land that had been dry for more than 10 years.
Some parts had even rolled up, looking extremely menacing and frightening. However, this state was a good thing for an injured person like Yun Yang, because under the dry and cracked skin was pink and tender flesh, tender and full of elasticity. It was obvious that his bodily functions were almost fully recovered. Old Wu was dumbfounded, speechless for a moment. I've never seen such a quick, instant death from the Empyrean Golden Thunder. It's like it's specially here to change this boy's skin. Is it because his previous appearance is not good enough? Old Wu mumbled to himself. It was not that he was making a fuss, but what he saw was too difficult to explain. Up until now, there were no problems with the boy's bones, meridians, and internal organs. Even the burnt layer of skin had been replaced with new ones. Your father has guarded the Crimson Soul Mountain for so many years, and I've seen so many demons struck by the Golden Thunder. Which one of them did not perish and perish? In the end, this boy only suffered some damage.
Even with this old man's help and spiritual medicine, this shouldn't be the case. While second brother Wu was still in a daze, he saw the kid on the ground move a little.
He saw the kid use some force and sit up. Then, the dried skin and flesh on his body began to fall off like mud. Under Old Wu's dumbfounded gaze, the person in front of him stood up and scathed, like a snake shedding its skin. It was just that he was naked from head to toe, which was rather eye-catching. Old Wu could not help glancing at his crotch in shame and sighed inwardly, feeling rather ashamed of himself. He really wanted to exchange his 7,000 years of guarding the Crimson Soul Mountain for this. When he lifted his head again, he saw that the boy was already wearing a purple robe. He could wear it from the inside out.
Coupled with the hair that had just grown out, although it was not completely recovered, it was at least 70 to 80% of his normal state.
Chapter 1232. Second brother Wu focused his eyes on the other party's face again. It was perfect and flawless, so exquisite that it was as if she had walked out of a painting. It was just a simple stand, and it was clearly a little hurried and even a little awkward, but a series of praises naturally filled second brother Wu's mind. What was it about being handsome, with muscles of ice and bones of jade, graceful and composed? An immortal Fu could not help but curse inwardly. He's so rich, but he still looks so. Is this fellow really here to use the golden lightning for plastic surgery? F***CK. It must be. At this moment, Wu even thought that he should not have saved this man's public enemy. I didn't expect the Blood Soul Mountain's flight ban to be so terrifying.
Yun Yang said with a respectful smile. Thank you, senior, for saving me and bestowing me with the rare spiritual medicine.
This humble one is grateful for senior's kindness. Wu snorted and said with disdain, Humph, you still speak so nicely. Yun Yang could not make heads or tails of the situation. The man in front of him didn't seem to be angry at all. Instead, he seemed to be jealous. What did he mean by jealous? It was only the first time they had met, and he had just escaped from a disaster. His pathetic state was in front of the man's eyes. What was there to be jealous about? What kind of explanation was this?
Wu narrowed his eyes and asked in a daze. Young fellow, what's your name?
This junior is Yun Yang. The wind rises Yun Yang. That Yun Yang. Your father knows how to read. Do I need you to interpret it word by word? Yun Yang instinctively rolled his eyes. He could finally put this action into action again. How comforting. Where did you come from, young fellow? What's your background? What's your background? Tell me everything. Especially what are you here for? All of you had better be honest and explain everything clearly to me. Otherwise, don't blame this old man for being merciless. This old man can save you, young fellow, and I can also destroy you with a flip of my hand. Wu Aler's voice was stern and his expression was extremely ferocious, looking like he would attack if there was any disagreement. This junior's trip is. Yun Yang's eyes darted around. Of course, I'm here to join the war. I plan to slay the demons and contribute to the human race.
From the corner of his eyes, he could see that there were many people here.
Some were dressed in white, some in blue, and some in black. Obviously, there were too many heads and too many identities. How could Yun Yang dare to reveal his true intentions? Bullshit about your 18 consecutive turns. Second brother Wu cursed loudly. It's just a bolt of golden lightning that turned you into a roasted chicken in human form, and you still dare to go and kill the demons? Why didn't the strong wind above the ninth heaven cut your tongue? Boy, apart from your slightly outstanding appearance, don't you have any other good points? Yun Yang smiled sheepishly and replied telepathically. This junior has his reasons for coming here. Otherwise, why would I act so rashly and cross the chasm against God's might? However, there are too many people here. This junior dares not speak. As he spoke, Yun Yang had already come up with 2 reasons in his mind. Together with the real reason, there were a total of 3. Each of them was convincing and could not even be considered fake. However, the real reason was something that he would not say if he could avoid it. Even if the other party was the one who had saved him, even if the other party looked like a man of justice, it was still the case. Yun Yang was determined not to admit that this man's attitude towards him was inexplicably bad, and he was still a little upset. How could he tell the truth and tell the truth? Second brother Wu's expression softened a little as he said, If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. After a pause, he asked, Are you from the Celestial Luck Banner? Yes. The residence of 9 Supremes? What sect is that? Why have I never heard of such a sect in this world? This is... Boy, you're actually the leader of the residence of 9 Supremes? Yes. And the founder? Yes. No wonder. By the way, how long has this residence of 9 Supremes been established? Has it been 20 years? No, I've seen your body just now and touched it with my own hands. You're definitely less than 30 years old. Becoming a Supreme Saint before the age of 30. Is the level of Supreme Saints so worthless now? When did you establish the residence of 9 Supremes?
The residence of 9 Supremes was just established, less than 5 years ago.
This makes sense. F***CK. This is still not right. How can a sect established less than 5 years ago be a middle-class Celestial Luck Banner sect? Damn, it's only at the bottom of the middle class, which means it's the last place. It's not worth mentioning. Not worth mentioning. The last place? That's not worth mentioning. Wait, the last place? Even if it's the last place, it's still in the middle class, that's still not right. Are all middle-class Celestial Luck Banners so powerful now? Every sect with a middle-grade Celestial Luck Banner is very strong.
Second brother Wu's face showed a look of relief as he comforted. It's probably because the hard work we've put in guarding Bloody Soul Mountain for so many years has not been in vain. The stronger the lower sects are, does it mean that the higher sects will only be stronger? Even the bottom of the middle-class Celestial Luck Banner has someone who has ascended to the level of Supreme Saint. So the bottom of the upper-class Celestial Luck Banner must have at least 10 Supreme Saints? Ha! Senior is right, said Yun Yang. Our path of cultivation is tireless, courageous, and diligent. Apart from advancing toward the Great Tao, it's also to protect this world. This junior has boldly come to Bloody Soul Mountain this time with the intention of seeing how terrifying the demon race is, so that I can make early preparations. He said seriously, Seniors, You have worked hard for so many years and guarded the Blood Soul Mountain. It is true that you have created peace for the rear, but it is also because of this that the middle and low-level sects in the rear rarely have the chance to fight with the demon beasts. It is even more impossible to know yourself and the enemy, and to be prepared for battle. At least in this junior's opinion, this situation is very disadvantageous for the future ultimate battle between humans and demons. The starting point of the seniors is naturally understandable. They have also fought for countless years of peace and happiness for the human world. They have protected the lives of the low-level warriors, so that they will not come to this battlefield to die in vain. They hope that we will have enough time to cultivate to a certain level and have enough power to protect ourselves before coming to the Blood Soul Mountain to fight the demon clan. However, this painstaking effort has also resulted in another result. That is, the younger generation only has the ability to talk on paper, but not the ability to fight head-on. In the long run, as time passes, it is inevitable that they will lose their courage. What's more, as the peaceful time goes on, the heroes gradually become legends, and the people no longer have respect for them. Not only do they fail to live up to the painstaking efforts of seniors, they're also prone to ease and hate work, losing the will to fight. When Yunyang said these words, they were spoken with extreme sincerity and came from the bottom of his heart. Second brother Wu was dumbfounded.
Chapter 1233.
It was unknown when the others who were cultivating in the cave had opened their eyes as well, listening to Yunyang's words with rapt attention.
For a moment, the cave was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Outside, the sounds of battle continued to come in. It was obvious that the battle was still intense.
At this time, an elder in a black robe heaved a long sigh and said, "Young friend, what you said makes a lot of sense.
Not to mention demonic beasts and Xian beasts, even for ordinary eagles, when their chicks hatch, the adult eagles will personally go out to catch food and feed the chicks one mouthful at a time with overflowing love, no different from humans. They painstakingly nurture the chicks until they are fully fledged, but when the chicks learn to fly, they will throw them off the cliff directly, gambling with their lives. Those who learn to fly live, but those who can't, die. A nest of dozens of chicks usually only survives in the end. As for the other chicks, they all fall off the cliff and die a horrible death. We're not eagles, we don't know if the adult eagles feel grief. But the love of licking their chicks back then is enough to prove that eagles are not emotionless creatures. Everything is based on survival. If they're soft-hearted, none of the chicks will survive. Even birds are capable of risking their lives for the sake of survival. What we've done just happens to have neglected this crucial point. We've really protected the world's warriors too well. If a warrior doesn't go through cruel killings, doesn't go through the law of the jungle, and doesn't go through the hardships of the martial world, how can he take our place in the future? How can he shoulder the heavy burden of protecting humanity? The 7 to 8 people in the cave sighed at the same time, their faces full of sorrow. The people present were all extremely intelligent. Even fools would not be able to cultivate to such a high level. Yunyang was only halfway through his speech, but everyone had already understood the meaning behind his words. Drawing inferences from one instance was not a big deal, it was what it should be. Young friend's insight is truly thought-provoking.
The elder in black stood up and looked at Yunyang saying, "This old man is Zhu Ziyun.
Greetings."
An elder in black who stood beside him smiled and said, "This old man is Shi Shan. Brother Zhu, Yan Jin Ke, and I are all from the Northern Wilderness Demonic Palace."
Yunyang was shocked. Northern Wasteland Demonic Palace. He thought that the people here were all from the Eastern Celestial Palace.
The 3 people in blue smiled. "This old man is Fan Yunbang. These are my sworn brothers Su Yun Shui and Yuan Shijun. We are all from the Western Heaven Holy Palace." The man in the middle smiled and said, "The one who brought you in is called Second Brother Wu.
The one over there dressed in white who hasn't spoken a word all this time is his blood brother, Big Brother Wu. And the one fighting outside is called Hibuyu. The 3 of them are all from the Eastern Celestial Palace. They are from the same hometown as you." With just a few words, he had already briefly introduced everyone's background. Yunyang looked at the 8 people in the cave. Including the one outside, there were a total of 9 people. He would never have thought that these 9 people would come from 3 different places. Furthermore, they were the 3 great heavenly palaces that stood at the pinnacle of the world. East Pole Heavenly Palace, West Heaven Holy Palace, North Wasteland Demonic Palace.
Speaking of the people from the 3 heavenly palaces, He had long heard of them, but in fact, he had never seen any of them.
Unexpectedly today, he had met people from the 3 heavenly palaces at the same time.
Moreover, each of them was an elite figure, a pinnacle cultivator in the world.
This junior is Yun Yang. No need for introductions. Everyone heard what you said just now. You are Yun Yang, the leader of the middle-class sect, the residence of 9 supremes, and also the founder. You belong to the Sacred Heart Palace of the Eastern Celestial Palace, right?
A young hero, haha.
Zhu Ziyun laughed and said, Young friend, your cultivation base is higher than others at such a young age. You have already reached the level of a supreme saint. This old man is amazed. In terms of age, Leader Yun is the youngest supreme saint cultivator I have ever seen. Senior is too kind.
Sigh, this old man is just speaking his mind.
How can you say I'm too kind?
Xueqi said, looking at young friend's face, bones, muscles and meridians. Not only are you not old enough, I'm afraid you are not more than 25 years old.
Yun Yang was shocked and said, Senior's eyes are like a torch. This junior has been in the martial world for so many years, but this is the first time someone can see through my real age. Yun Yang's flattery was just right.
Xueqi stroked his beard and said happily, This old man has never been wrong in judging people for so many years.
Boss Wu snorted and said, How long have you King reached the pinnacle of the 4th level of Supreme Saint? Those who are a level lower in cultivation base stand in front of you, and you can see through their past and present lives with just one look. Now you have seen through their age and you are still proud of yourself. How shameless! Xueqi was furious. Boss Wu, do you 2 brothers want to fight?
Second brother Wu was extremely depressed.
I say, old Shi, I haven't said anything. If you want to fight with him, just fight. Why drag me into this? Yun Yang looked at second brother Wu and Boss Wu and scratched his head, his eyes filled with doubt. Xueqi guffawed, blowing his beard until it was straight. There's no need to ask. These 2 brothers are called by that name. There are no other titles. Back then, their parents had many children and they were illiterate, so they were named according to their age. The eldest was called Boss Wu, followed by second brother Wu, third brother Wu. Their whole family is full of people with long lives and extraordinary cultivation base. Oh right. Their parents gave them a little brother a few days ago. His main name is Wu Shiqi. He's strong and healthy, like an old steed in the stable, an old clam giving birth to a pearl. Boss Wu and second brother Wu glared at Xueqi, gritting their teeth with reddened faces. Xueqi, can you King keep your mouth shut? Even with Yun Yang's shrewdness, he almost laughed out loud.
So that was it.
Looking at Boss Wu and second brother Wu, then thinking about the entire Wu family in the Eastern Celestial Palace, especially Wu Shiqi, he could not help but be speechless. This fellow's parents were really fertile. 17 children and the youngest brother was actually born a few years ago. How impressive, how impressive. Xueqi could not stop laughing, his eyes hidden from view. Boss Wu, second brother, all the way up to 17, they're just boys in their family.
If the girls are included. Before he could finish his words, Boss Wu and second brother Wu had already pounced on him with a roar.
Their first move was a murderous one, not holding back at all. The corners of Yun Yang's lips twitched. All right, I've underestimated them. My knowledge and experience are too shallow, limiting my imagination. After a bout of fooling around, peace was finally restored. The 8 elders were looking at Yun Yang eagerly.
There was no other reason but that the 8 of them had been stationed here for many, many years.
Having never left the mountain for too long, they were looking forward to something in the world. Now that someone like Yun Yang had finally arrived, how could they not be looking forward to it? Second brother Wu had already set up a big table, but the table was empty.
Yun Yang was rather puzzled.
What are they doing? Are they going to entertain me? Chapter 1234. Wu Lauer had given a miracle healing medicine like the water of vitality to a stranger. His generosity could not be described with just the word, great. The gift they had given him must be extraordinary as well. However, there was nothing on it. What did that mean? Cough, cough. Seeing that Yun Yang had not moved for a long time, the group grew impatient. After a while, Fan Yun Bang coughed dryly, his expression unchanged as he said with a smile, Young friend, it's your first time here from the mainland. I wonder if you've brought any tea or wine from the mainland. It would be even better if there were teapots and teacups. Vegetables, meat, eggs, rice and grains are all good. Anything that's from the mainland is good. All good. Yun Yang was stunned by this group of people's unusual request, at a loss for a moment. What was wrong with these people? Even if they were limited by their environment and lacked resources, with their cultivation base, they could easily make a teapot or teacup out of thin air with their spiritual qi. As for vegetables and other fruits and vegetables, they lacked them, but with these people's speed, it would only take them a day or two at most to make a round trip. It would be even easier if they could get the ingredients nearby. Why were they so hungry? When he had first met Dong Qitian, Old Man Dong had been so miserable when he was trapped. It was easy enough for him to make some flying birds or something to reap some benefits. Even if these people were not as good as Old Man Dong, they should not be too far off. Why did they look like they had never seen anything good before? It was baffling. The miracle healing medicine that Wu Lauer had given him was enough to exchange for resources that these people would never be able to finish in their entire lives. As if noticing Yun Yang's confusion, Su Yunshui smiled wryly and said, "Young friend, you might not know this, but we seem to be carefree and do as we please, but ever since we came to this realm, it's as if we've been shackled, unable to be tainted by the mundane world. The 9 stars aligned formation on this mountain requires the 9 of us to work together to form an indestructible formation against the demon race. Once any one of us is missing, the formation will be broken. The demon clan has been paying attention to us at all times, waiting for the day when we are short of people. When that day comes, they will be able to sense it immediately and attack us with all their strength. They won't give us any chance to make up for it. Ever since we came up, we didn't dare to take even half a step away. We didn't dare to slack off for even a moment. The desire for good food is just a trivial matter. If we implicate the lives of our brothers because of this, or even bring disaster to the common people of the world, then even if we are smashed to pieces, we will not be able to absolve ourselves from the blame." An indescribable loneliness flashed across Su Yunshui's thin face. He said lightly, "After so many years, the things that we brought over in the past have been eaten up. The tea leaves have been cut off for who knows how many years. With our cultivation base, it's fine even if we don't eat or drink. It's just that after not eating or drinking for so many years, we actually have a subtle feeling that we're no longer human. That feeling is really awkward." On the other side, Boss Wu chuckled bitterly as well. As for the mimicry of spiritual qi, it's just a side effect of a higher cultivation base. It's not about the mundane world. We only want the mundane world, nothing else. Yun Yang was shaken as he murmured, "I see. This junior understands now." In his heart, there were 2 sentences echoing. The desire for good food is just a trivial matter. If we implicate the lives of our brothers because of this, or even bring disaster to the common people of the world, then even if we are smashed to pieces, we will not be able to absolve ourselves from the blame. It's not about the mundane world? What we want is only worldly possessions, and nothing else. He could not help but feel respect for them. What a group of respectable people they were. "Yes, I have all of them here." Yun Yang waved his hand and hundreds of pots of wine appeared on the ground. This was all that the god of wine, Feng Xiang'a, had in stock. Yun Yang only had these with him. Overwhelmed with emotion, he did not keep a single pot for himself and took them all out. Seeing the fine wine in front of them, the crowd cheered for a long time. Then, Yun Yang took out bags of tea leaves. These tea leaves were of different types, adding up to dozens of caddies. All that he had in stock. Tea leaves could not be compared to fine wine. Yun Yang did not bring a lot with him, only bringing some with him out of habit for emergencies. These tea leaves were the premium teas given by the General Commerce League when they were in contact. They were the best of the time, none of them ordinary. However, Yun Yang was fond of wine but not tea. He had almost never used them, but he did not expect to use them here. Since there were rare fine wine and premium teas, the matching wine and tea set was naturally provided as well. These alone filled up more than half of the space in the cave. However, it was a little difficult to request more. Fruits and vegetables were the most common and easily obtainable items in the mortal world, but here, they were the rarest. Although Emmy could hasten the growth of all spiritual plants, it still needed seeds. Yun Yang did not lack any seeds or sprouts of any spiritual plants,
But he did not have any seeds of ordinary fruits and vegetables.
He really did not have any. Even the cleverest housewife could not cook without rice, and Emmy could not nurture a plant without seeds. Little friend, there's no need to feel troubled. Now that we have tea and wine, we're already satisfied.
The few old men all had faces full of joy and joy.
The dishes that go with the wine are easy to discuss on our side. Wu Lao Er rushed out and searched the mountain wall for a while. Then, he returned with a few snow lotuses and ginsengs.
It's better than nothing to go with the wine.
There's more or less the taste of the leaves.
Yun Yang patted his head and said, "If this can be made do, I have quite a lot here."
As he spoke, he had already spoken to Emmy. A certain someone had grabbed 70 to 80 stalks from the space. There were plentiful cinnabar fruits, huge sealworts, and various fragrant flowers and fruits of various colors. All of them were rare treasures of heaven and earth, aged spiritual plants and fruits. The elders who witnessed the scene widened their eyes in shock. This child's spatial ring was huge. And, young friend, is your spatial ring a grotto treasure? It can actually maintain the vitality of spiritual plants? Fan Yunbang asked curiously.
How rare is a grotto treasure?
I don't have that kind of luck. These are just the ones I passed by Tian Fa on my way here. Yun Yang smiled. I see. The elders did not doubt Yun Yang's words at all. They knew about the existence of Tian Fa Holy Land even if others did not.
Yun Yang's cultivation base was enough for him to come and go as he pleased in the outskirts of the land of Tian Fa.
It was not surprising that he could collect these spiritual plants and fruits.
How rare!
Su Yunshui's eyes shone. Today is the most sumptuous meal I've had in these thousands of years. Chapter 1235. Everyone worked together. One person waved his hand, and the spiritual chi in the air immediately condensed into spiritual liquid, which washed all the heavenly treasures, spiritual plants, and spiritual fruits. They also washed all the pots and pans, and then Xueqi Shan began to show off his skills. Squeeze this fruit and use its juice. Not only does it taste the same as the oil used in stir-frying, it's even more fragrant. Remove the spiritual chi from the spiritual herb and ferment it to make vinegar. Old Su, use your pure yang mystical chi to roast this fruit dry and grind it into powder.
It's the best to make salt. This old man will be the chef.
Today, I'll give all of you a small test. You're all in for a treat today. Xueqi Shan held the large wok and smiled in satisfaction. Yun Yang stared dumbfoundedly.
The heaven and earth treasures that could be auctioned off at a sky-high price outside were being fried in the wok by these old men. The essence of the heaven and earth treasures were all removed and not used. Instead, it was the dregs that were put to great use.
Would anyone believe such a thing? The corners of Yun Yang's lips were already twitching, but what he saw next was even more shocking. Other than the main effect of rapidly recovering one's energy and increasing mystical chi, the cinnabar fruit was also a fruit that tasted good and had a great texture. However, Old Man Su had not only extracted the juice from it, but had also roasted it dry and turned it into granules that were similar to white sugar to be used as seasoning. Was this really appropriate? There was also the Tiannan Ting. Yun Yang knew that it was a highly poisonous item. It was a spiritual herb that Yun Yang had casually brought out earlier. According to Yun Yang's knowledge, a drop of this thing's juice could poison 10 cows to death. But when the old men saw it, they didn't care at all. They washed it, broke it up, and put it into their mouths to chew. They were all grinning from ear to ear and kept praising, "It's really refreshing." Yun Yang was shocked. This thing is poisonous. The few old men rolled their eyes. How rare is it? Who doesn't know that it's poisonous? It can't be eaten if it's poisonous. This crunchy texture is even better than eating cucumbers. It's so satisfying. They ignored Yun Yang and continued munching with a satisfied expression. Yun Yang was speechless. Second Elder Wu laughed as he chewed.
Kid, you're a holy venerable, so your knowledge is still shallow.
Which one of us old things isn't immune to all poisons? If there's a poison in this world that can send them away, they might even thank us again and again. Yun Yang was speechless for a good while. He Bu Yu, who was fighting outside, yelled, "All of you, please watch your mouths. Don't eat all of them. Leave some for me." Fan Yunbang laughed heartily. "I won't leave any for you. Everyone, hurry up." How can we take the initiative to share such a good thing? Hibuyu, if you want to eat, then hurry up and come in.
Hibuyu was enraged.
I'm fighting for my life out there, and you don't even leave me anything to eat? This is too much.
Don't you have any shame?
Fan Yunbang snorted. Bullshit. If I were outside right now, would you stay for me? It's been thousands of years since I've had such a good meal. Who would care about who?
That person must be a fool.
Hibuyu yelled. Are we still brothers? Can we still be alone? The 8 people inside shouted in unison, We'll eat it for you.
Hibuyu was enraged, but he could be heard saying from outside, Nine-tailed, leave first.
How about you come back after I've had my meal? A sharp voice came from outside, like the clanging of steel. Hibuyu, you're not a son. How dare you chase me away when you're having a meal? How can you say that?
Hibuyu retorted angrily. What do you mean then?
Do you want to fight me to the end? What this king means is, this king also wants to eat.
Hibuyu said, All right, but you guys can't come and make trouble when I'm having a meal.
Of course. Then the sounds of fighting outside disappeared. Hibuyu, who was dressed in white, walked in with a big fox with golden fur. It had a human head and a fox body, with 9 tails.
The fox's head was that of a handsome middle-aged man. As soon as he walked into the cave, his figure shook and transformed into a middle-aged man in a golden robe and a crown on his head.
He walked in slowly and said with a smile, Greetings, everyone. Since there's good food here, let's not fight for now.
The 8 people cursed at the same time. Damn it, what are you doing here, you coquettish fox?
It's not easy for us to get something to eat. You're a fox, not a dog. Why is your nose so sensitive?
Get out of here, there's no place for you here.
The middle-aged man touched his nose and smiled bitterly. You're all useless. You're from the mysterious universe. You should be used to eating these things. I'm afraid you're already sick of them. But I've only eaten them a few times in my life. Now, I'm using a temporary truce as a condition to have a meal with you, and you're not happy? Boss Wu laughed and said, Let the fox eat some, it'll be my farewell meal. The Fox King was furious when he heard that. He rolled his eyes and said, Since it's my last meal, I'll have to eat more. I'll eat until I'm full. Let me say this first, I want to take away 10 caddies of these tea leaves. And these wine, I want to take away 50 jars. The 9 people were furious at the same time. Bastard, you're dreaming. You're too much. Be careful. The 9 of us will kill you right here in this cave. The Fox King snorted and said, As long as you have the ability to do so, just do it. But I have to say this first, once we start fighting, I'll definitely destroy all these wine and tea leaves. Do you think I don't dare?
He crossed his arms and snorted. Even if you hide these things in your spatial rings,
do you think I can destroy them all? The 9 people were dumbfounded. After a long time Hibuyu cursed. Damn it! You win! These 9 people were very clear in their hearts that the cultivation of this Fox King before them was no joke. He had already reached the highest realm of the 9-tailed fox clan. If the 9 of them joined forces to surround and defeat him, it would be a piece of cake. However, if they were to talk about killing him, it would be impossible. The 9-tailed fox clan's supernatural power was extremely abnormal. As long as there was a single fox hair left undamaged, it could be used to resurrect, and its combat power would not be affected at all. In other words, he had the capital to risk his life. Hibuyu said, No matter what, we can't let you take it away just like that. We've allowed you to eat, but that's on the premise of a temporary truce. After this meal, we'll decide the winner with a bet. 9 people from your side, and 9 people from my side. We'll bet on who wins and who loses. 1 win, 1 jar of wine. 2 wins, 1 jar of wine, 1 cup of tea. How about it? Everyone responded, I've nothing better to do, so I'll beat the kids on a cloudy day. It's the 4th update today. Please subscribe. Chapter 1236. The Fox King rolled his eyes. Do you think I'm the Bear King? 1 pot for 1 win? I don't dare. If you don't fight, I'll do it now. Then 10 pots for 1 round. 2 caddies of tea. Hibuyu quickly changed his strategy. How about we fight for a full month? Let's draw lots. A fight between gentlemen is only about victory and defeat, not life and death. The Fox King frowned and said, "All right, it's settled. But after today's meal, I have to take 2 caddies of tea and 20 pots of wine. This is my bottom line. Otherwise, we'll split and no one can enjoy it alone." The 9 men looked at each other and sighed dejectedly. Very well. The Fox King laughed heartily and sat down cross-legged without any reservations. He casually plucked a poisonous vine and placed it into his mouth to chew. He sighed and said, "In your words, it's really King refreshing." Yun Yang was dumbstruck watching from the side. These people had been fighting with the demon race here for thousands of years, and they had actually become friends? It seemed like this was not the first time. Who is this young fellow? The Fox King squinted his eyes at Yun Yang and praised, "You humans are indeed full of talents. This young fellow is only 23.5 years old at most, but he's already reached the level of a second-level Supreme Saint. This is the first time I've seen such a genius." He Buyu's face was filled with a comforting expression. Wuoler said coldly, "This is the first time I've seen it. That's just because you demons are useless. Each of you stinks. What's the point of cultivating? Why don't you just surrender?" The Fox King glanced at him and said indifferently, "Don't talk to me if you don't have a ***. Wu was enraged and was about to stand up. The others quickly pulled him back. "Brother, you have it, we all know you have it. Don't be provoked by him, he's doing it on purpose. If you don't believe me, take off your pants and let him see." The group laughed. Xueqi Shan, who was preparing the dishes, had already begun to emit a rich aroma. After a while, plates of appetizing stir-fried dishes, no stir-fried heaven and earth treasures, were served. Deep-fried snow ginseng, vine-exploding seedlings, silk sealwort, stir-fried heaven palace lotus, 7-leaf lotus choking geocentric seeds, polygonum multiflorum heart cold mixed with Xianshan heart. If this table of dishes were to be moved out, just the cost alone would be enough to buy a country, and there would even be some surplus. What was even more awesome was that most of these heavenly treasures had lost their essence. "Come, try this. Does it taste like cabbage? Try this. Does it taste like a potato? Here, this is the method of making vinegar yam tablets. Isn't it crisper? Why does this look like stir-fried mung bean sprouts? It's exactly the same." The Fox King laughed heartily and ate heartily. The jars of wine had already been opened. This was the work of the god of wine. Naturally, it was extraordinary and had become a masterpiece. Everyone was beaming with joy as they drank. Only the Fox King seemed to be deep in thought after drinking a bowl and said, "This wine, I seem to have drunk it somewhere before." When the others heard this, they didn't pay much attention to it. All of them were people of great status, and they tasted countless superb wines in the past. Although the wine god's legacy could be said to be superb, to people like them who hadn't tasted wine for far too long, they couldn't tell the difference. Yun Yang, however, felt a jolt in his heart. He lifted his head abruptly and asked, "This wine, Lord Fox King, has drunk it before?" The Fox King's calm and gentle gaze focused on Yun Yang's face as he said faintly, "This young friend seems to value this wine very much?" Yun Yang heaved a long sigh and said, "To be honest, this wine was brewed by an elder in my family. This junior has never really seen this elder before. I only obtained 1,000 jars of wine from him in the family's storage by chance. The elders in my family say that it's the best wine in the world, but this junior has never heard of any rumors about it despite traveling to many places." Yun Yang smiled sheepishly and said, "If the Fox King has really drunk this wine, then..." His words were eloquent and emotional. He Buyu and the others did not doubt him at all as they said, "I see. Although we haven't drunk wine for a long time, we can still tell a thing or two about the taste of good wine. This wine of yours is exquisite. We've never seen anything like it in our lives. It turns out that it's your ancestral legacy. We're greatly indebted to you." Unexpectedly, the Fox King's gaze was fixed on Yun Yang's face as he said indifferently, "Why are you cultivating the art of frozen heart when you speak?" As soon as the 9-tailed Fox King spoke these words, everyone was stunned in unison. Most of the elders' attention was on the delicacy before them. The remaining small portion of their attention was on guarding against the Fox King's sudden outburst.
They really did not have the slightest spare for Yun Yang, so they were slightly taken aback when they heard the question. Yun Yang, on the other hand, was unfazed as he said, "The Fox King isn't one of my clansmen. Our standpoints are different and it's our first meeting. This junior has asked mainly because I'm concerned about my ancestors' news. There's no other intention. However, this junior's inner hostility still exists. It's a joyous truce now. If I were to reveal it, it'll only upset the Fox King and add to the uncertainty."
I didn't expect the Fox King to be so sensitive. This junior has tried his best to restrain himself, but you've still sensed it. Yun Yang paused and said, "Speaking of which, this is Junior's petty heart. Seniors have fought with the Fox King for so many years. We've long appreciated each other and know each other's guts. As the saying goes, heroes cherish heroes. The enemy's hero is the true enemy. However, since the Fox King has been invited by the seniors, the other side must be an honorable senior as well. No matter what, I, Yun Yang, can't give the Fox King the same respect as the seniors. Please forgive me, Fox King. Therefore, it's not just today. Even if we meet again in the future, this junior will still cultivate the art of frozen heart to be safe when I meet the seniors." Yun Yang spoke neither humbly nor haughtily. These words made the 9 old men very happy, and they beamed with joy, as if they were comforted by their old age. Yu guffawed. "Fox King, you've always been sharp with your words. You thought you've gotten a handle on your words just now, but now you know that you've lost. I'm not afraid to tell you that this is the bound of universe's men. If the demon race wants to step into the bound of universe, the first thing you'll have to face is the iron bones of the bound of universe's men." Yun Yang chuckled and said, "Yun Yang may be a bound of universe's man, but he's only at the bottom of the bound of universe's men." There was no other expression on the Fox King's gentle face as he said faintly, "A grain of rice? If there are more than 10 young men like you in the bound of universe, the demon realm will really have no hope. Say, I've only asked why you're cultivating the art of frozen heart. Why do you have to explain it in such a long way? Don't tell me you have a guilty conscience?" Chapter 1237. Yun Yang smiled faintly and said, "There's no such thing as a guilty conscience, it's the truth. I thank the Fox King for your praise, but there are many youths like Yun Yang in the bound of universe. We'll know when we meet. I only hope that when it's my turn to guard the Bloody Soul Mountain, I can still have an opponent like the Fox King as my enemy." The Fox King asked. Yun Yang said seriously, "Humans have their own heroes. I believe the demonic race has their own legends too. There's no contradiction between heroes and heroes, but we all have our own standpoints after all. That's all. Seniors have fought and died for the sake of their descendants. Tens of thousands of years have passed like a day. One wants to defend, to protect the peace and happiness behind, while the other wants to come and expand his territory, to give the younger generation a vast world. Their feelings are the same. What's the difference? Between martial artists, life and death hangs by a hair's breadth, especially in a war that involves one's standpoints. It's rare to be merciful, but in private, it's not impossible to be friends. After all, the person who understands you the most is often not a friend, but an old enemy. Just like the 10 seniors sitting here drinking wine today. To be honest, this is the moment that moves and makes this junior envious." Yun Yang heaved a long sigh and said slowly, "Today we drink together, tomorrow we fight on the battlefield, today we call each other bosom friends, tomorrow we face each other with saber and sword. I die with no regrets. I live with no regrets. I die with no regrets. The grudges of this life have been settled. Today's meeting is not a waste." He said with a sigh, "At least in my opinion, this is the highest realm of a martial artist. The Demon King is worthy of the demonic race, and the human seniors are worthy of the bound of universe. What's the difference between us?" His words caused everyone present to fall into deep thought, and their faces were filled with brilliance. Boss Wu raised his cup in thought and murmured, "The highest realm of a martial artist? Ha!" The Fox King looked at Yun Yang with a solemn gaze for a long time before he suddenly smiled and said, "You're a good child, not bad at all." Yun Yang replied humbly, "This is the glory that the seniors have spent their entire lives writing. It's not something that this junior can boast about. Of course Yun Yang, respect my human seniors, but towards the Fox King and the other demonic seniors, even if there's still a day when we have to fight to the death, I still have respect in my heart. He sighed with emotion.
At the very least, with the cultivation of seniors, you've long since been able to move unhindered through the world. No matter how you enjoy life, it's all easy, and you can do as you please. But the choice of our seniors is to willingly spend the rest of their lives on this blood-soul mountain. This is already worthy of everyone's respect, and is worthy of the respect of all demon clans. Who says that there are no heroes in the outsiders? Everyone present, including the Fox King, nodded slightly. Yun Yang's words had spoken their minds. What she did not know was that Yun Yang was secretly wiping away the cold sweat on his forehead, thinking that he had finally managed to deceive her about the art of frozen heart. Sure enough, everyone liked flattery. No matter how powerful an expert was, he would still have to submit under the pressure of a high hat. Hee. With Yun Yang's greeting, the 10 of them seemed to be in high spirits as they drank. The Fox King did not answer Yun Yang's question from the beginning to the end. Yun Yang was not anxious about it, nor did he ask further. He listened to the 9 humans and the Demon King's conversation with a respectful smile. They were indeed imaginative. Their topics were varied and endless. At this moment, Buyu and the others were still talking about the strange happenings of the human race, but in the next moment, it was the Fox King's turn to talk about the demon race's abyss. It was shocking and awe-inspiring, however, as Yun Yang listened to them, he was acutely aware that although these people spoke a lot and the content was extensive and all-encompassing, neither Buyu, Wu Lauer, nor the Fox King mentioned a single word about the accumulation of their combat power or the internal situation. Even though the Fox King had complained about the harsh environment of the demon race, when it came to the advantages and disadvantages of the demon race itself, he did not mention a single word about it. Half drunk, the Fox King patted the mud seal with a pot of wine in his arms and said with a sigh, "Actually, the demon race and humans are really just a matter of perspective. In our understanding, the demon clan eating humans is a matter of course. Humans are just a type of food in this world. Humans, however, have a completely different understanding of this, because this idea is treacherous. It's also because of this fundamental difference that there's no possibility for humans and the demon race to coexist peacefully. Therefore, in the end, this continent can only be ruled by the party that survives. Those of us who can still sit together and drink and chat now, when the time comes to an irreconcilable point, either I die in your hands or you all die in mine." Speaking up to here, the Fox King smiled and said, "But if that time really comes, when one of us really becomes the ruler of this continent, if there are any of us alive, what should we do?" Buyu and the others thought about it, but their expressions changed in unison. "When that time comes and all our old opponents are dead, we'll be the only ones left in this world. What are we going to do then? Continue to cultivate? What's the point of cultivation? Longevity? What's the point of longevity? Enjoyment? If we want to enjoy, what can't we enjoy now? But if it's to fight, who will we fight with? After these old opponents are gone, even if there's a successor with a cultivation base, can we put down our pride and fight them? Or even fight to the death? Drink? Taste delicacies? Enjoy life? Sightseeing?" Intentionally or unintentionally talking about this topic, these 10 experts who had reached the pinnacle of cultivation in the world all fell into a state of confusion. They were stunned. Yun Yang, who was standing aside, was speechless. After a while, seeing that everyone was still silent, he finally could not help but say, "It looks like after drinking, no matter how intelligent or far-sighted one is, or how high one's cultivation base is, one's brain is no longer as sharp as before." "What do you mean?" The 10 men turned to look at him simultaneously, all of them drunk. Yun Yang was exasperated as he said, "What all of you are thinking about now, at least in this junior's opinion, is very senseless." The 10 men snorted in unison, their expressions unfriendly. "What? What did you say?" "First, there's a huge mistake in Senior Fox King's argument. Even if the final battle between both sides is decided, and one side dominates the bound of universe, the other side can't be completely annihilated. No matter how severe the casualties are, there'll always be embers to pass on the torch. Second, for seniors with your cultivation base, even if you intervene in the final battle and the continent is ruled by the opposing side, the possibility of you dying in the battle is still very small. The biggest possibility is that you'll lead your clansmen to hide and wait for the day to rise again. Therefore, your old opponents won't die at least not all of them. By then, even if you're lonely, I'm afraid it'll be a very difficult thing, because in the days to come,
You'll have to look for your old opponent's whereabouts as your life goal.
Yun Yong rolled his eyes speechlessly.
Thirdly, with the Crimson Soul Mountain separating the two worlds, it'll be very difficult for one side to completely rule the continent for a very long time. Perhaps I should put it this way. Although all of you have a long life and enjoy longevity, you may not be able to see that day come in your lifetime.
Yun Yong raised his cup and smiled.
In conclusion, instead of worrying about having no opponents at that time, it's better to think of a way now and get rid of your opponents first. Who knows, it'll be lonely at the top with an invincible expert. His words rendered the 10 men speechless on the spot. After a long moment of silence, they burst into laughter. The solemn atmosphere from before was no more, replaced by undulating guffaws. Amidst the laughter, the Fox King's gaze regained its clarity as he said with a smile, "Actually, in this life, let's just treat it as a few old friends accompanying and relaxing every day. We're also using each other to kill time." He turned to look at Yun Yong, the admiration in his eyes growing stronger as he said, "Child, I admire you more and more now. I can answer your question for you." Yun Yong replied excitedly, "Thank you, Senior Fox King." The Fox King nodded thoughtfully and said, "Of course, the taste of this wine is superb, but once it's opened, the smell of alcohol soars into the sky, turning into the auspicious image of a dragon and phoenix that lingers for a long time. This is the main reason why I have such a deep impression."
"I've drunk more than 10 pots of this wine."
Yun Yong asked, "May I ask, Senior, how many years ago was that?" The Fox King thought about it and said uncertainly, "About 700 to 800 years? Or perhaps 1,000 years. Whether it's human or demon, there's hardly anything worth remembering after living in this world for a long time. I really can't remember it. I'm just being vague." Yun Yong frowned. Of course this junior doesn't doubt Senior's words, but does Senior still have any impression of who brewed this wine? The Fox King said, "I'm not a wine king. That wine was only a gift from the Monkey King. It's unique, that's why I have some impression of it. Why would this king be interested in finding out who brewed it?" "The Monkey King, huh?" Yun Yong was deep in thought. The god of wine, Feng Xiang'a, was one of Mr. Nian's incarnations, but the real god of wine might not be Mr. Nian. Perhaps the god of wine had fallen for some reason, and Mr. Nian had borrowed his identity. Yun Yong had long guessed this, but he had never had any proof. Initially, this had nothing to do with the grand scheme of things, but now that he had accidentally formed a connection with the demon race, it was an unexpected gain for Yun Yong. At that moment, he had almost lost his composure and had to use the art of frozen heart to calm himself down. Could it be that the Four Seasons Tower was related to the demon race? Yun Yong could not help but be worried about his emotions. If so, this matter would be very complicated. Chapter 1238. Seeing the worry on Yun Yang's face, He Buyu comforted him. "Young Yun, you don't have to worry. You're now the leader of the human celestial luck banner. Even if your ancestor had connections with the demon race, it has nothing to do with you. You said it yourself, your ancestor was famous for his wine. Maybe it was his wine that accidentally flowed to the demon race." "It's understandable." The others agreed. "That's right. That should be the case. It's understandable." Su Yunshui snorted coldly. "So what if it's wine for the demon race? What does it have to do with you?"
"Don't worry. I'll kill whoever dares to trouble you."
Yun Yong smiled bitterly while rubbing his nose. "Thank you for your comfort, seniors, but this junior isn't worried about this. My worry is mainly because my family's winemaking skill has been passed down for nearly 10,000 years. Since my ancestors' whereabouts were unknown, this skill has been lost. Back then, the elders in the family passed it down from generation to generation to find my ancestors' skill. Even if the descendants could no longer make a living from it, they wanted to keep this skill in the family and pass it on without interruption. The family skill that my family relied on for survival was lost in one day. Generations of my ancestors passed away with regret. As a descendant, of course, I have the heart to make up for it."
Yun Yong smiled bitterly.
"Before this, I've inquired about the more famous intelligence organizations in the Bound of Universe, but I didn't get any useful information. I've come to the Crimson Soul Mountain this time to see the true face of the Holy War, and also to see if there's any way to go to the demon race and collect some wine soul grass. I'll try to restore this family skill." It's hard to find a lost skill, but it's not impossible to find another way to recover the old wine. Wine soul grass?
More than 3 people spoke one after another.
Yes, it's the wine soul grass. Yun said, other than being brewed, the wine soul grass has no other use and has nothing to do with cultivation. It's black when it's born and turns dark green when it's ripe. It bears fruit once every 3 years and the fruits it bears are only the size of a finger. There are 9 fruits in each cluster, but the juice in these 9 fruits is no different from natural wine. Perhaps this item has other names, but in our family, it's called the wine soul grass. However, there's no such herb in the Bound of Universe.
I've offered a bounty in the entire Bound of Universe, but I couldn't find it. The 10 of them came to a sudden realization at the same time.
So that's how it is. You've really put in a lot of effort. Yun looked at the Fox King with a hopeful gaze.
Lord Fox King, may I ask if you've seen this grass before?
The Fox King pondered for a long time and said, No. I have no impression at all. You also said that this thing is useless for cultivation. Why would we pay attention to this thing?
Second brother Wu stroked his chin and said, So the main reason you came to the Blood Soul Mountain this time is actually for this.
Yun said with some embarrassment, It should be said that it's half and half. Of course, there's no shortage of wanting to go and see the demon race's strength and have a clearer understanding of my own strength. But it's not convenient to say this in front of Lord Fox King. The Fox King laughed involuntarily and said, This is the truth. Although your cultivation base is not weak, if you enter the demon plane alone, it's still a matter of death, not to mention looking for the wine soul grass. It's a waste of time and effort. It's not something that can be found overnight. It's extremely dangerous, old brother Wu said. But if there's the Fox King's help, won't young Yun be able to go unhindered? The Fox King rolled his eyes and said, Nonsense, why should I help a human? This brat keeps talking about his standpoint and has already made it clear that he wants to destroy the demon race.
If I help him, won't I be looking for trouble and hastening my own decline?
Yun said boldly, I don't need Senior Fox King's help in this matter. If I implicate Senior Fox King, it'll be my fault instead. An expert like Senior Fox King will only die a worthy death if he falls on the battlefield. No matter what, I don't want him to be like the previous 9 lives Cat King. Seniors don't have to worry too much. I have my own plans. The Fox King's expression turned dangerous as he said in a strange tone, Young fellow, you're quite knowledgeable. You actually know about the case of my clan's 9 lives Cat King? Yun laughed. Senior, you must be joking. Today's main point is to drink and eat. There's no need to talk about such things that spoil the mood.
The Fox King snorted, his eyes straightening as he said with some hostility, Young fellow, you don't have any good intentions.
You want to provoke me to help you enter the demon plane. Can't I really see through it? Yun smiled. It's true that this junior is showing off in front of an expert, but it's also expected that Senior Fox King won't fall for it. The Fox King said faintly, Young fellow, I'll make it so that you can't guess it. As he spoke, he slapped a token on the table and said, As long as this 9-tailed token is still in your hands, you can do whatever you want in the entire demon plane. I'll let you see this king's power. Yun coughed and quickly kept the 9-tailed token away, saying, Thank you, Senior Fox King, for your righteousness. This junior thanks you in advance. He kept it away so quickly that everyone was taken aback for a moment before they burst out laughing. Fox King, you old fellow who prides himself on being cunning has fallen for it. Old Wu's second guffawed. However, he was slapped on the head by Boss Wu. Bastard, don't speak if you don't understand. If it weren't for this young fellow's whine, would the Fox King have been provoked? This is the Fox King not wanting to owe karma, so he's just helping out by being provoked. What do you know? The Fox King guffawed and said, That's right. The host of today's banquet was brought by this young fellow. Your clan has eaten and drunk, but it's a family matter. As an uninvited guest, I can't drink this young one's wine and food for nothing. Even if he didn't provoke me, I'd still protect him. After this, we don't owe each other anything. The Fox King said solemnly. Yun said quietly, Very well, that's how it should be. Actually, Yun was well aware of it. The word, karma, was incomparably mysterious. Ordinary people or low-level martial artists might have some ungrateful behavior, or if they owed something, then they owed it.
They would not care about the so-called karma, because they would not have any profound state of mind. However, the higher the cultivation base, the more they would care about this. Especially when one had reached the pinnacle of the Fox King's cultivation base, they would never owe karma. This was because a debt of karma could lead to serious consequences. Especially in the case of some heart-related demons, a lifetime's experience might even be replayed in front of the demon in the mind. Once there was a debt and a flaw in the state of mind, the demon in the heart would take advantage of the weakness and cause a lifetime of regret. When one had reached a certain level, the cultivation was actually a heart that was clear and pure. Therefore, the higher one's status and cultivation base, the less one would owe others anything. Once a debt was owed, one had to settle it as soon as possible to ensure a clear and flawless state of mind.
Chapter 1239. In just a few words, the matter of Yun-Yang entering the demonic race had been settled. Then, Yun-Yang realized that his trip to the demonic race had paved the way for him. As long as he did not purposely seek death, this move would be as stable as a mountain, no longer as dangerous as he had expected. He was struck by lightning from the heavens and narrowly escaped death. After escaping death from a great calamity, his luck immediately turned to joy. This luck was simply boundlessly high.
Good wine, really good wine.
The Fox King finished half a pot of wine and guffawed.
You bunch of old fellows are really pitiful.
You've sacrificed so much for the bound of universe's human race, but you can't even get some supplies. You're eating and drinking every day. The next time I come, I'll bring some specialties from our side. Let's have a good fight and have a good drink. Boss Wu's eyes shone.
Words are spoken, it's a deal.
The Fox King rolled his eyes and said, "Of course it's a deal."
Sigh. I'm not afraid to tell you old fellows that if it weren't for the fact that there are very few people who can drink with me in the 10,000 demon plane and make me feel comfortable drinking with them, how could my good stuff fall into your hands?
Hearing the words enemies, the crowd roared with laughter, not at all offended. Hibuyu laughed bleakly and said, "That's right. At our level, there aren't many people who can get together to drink. So what if we're enemies? As long as we're in the right mood and treat each other with sincerity, we can only get drunk together."
Treat each other with sincerity. Get drunk together.
The Fox King laughed maniacally. "If one day, I really die in the hands of any of you, that would be the happiest thing in my life. I wouldn't have wasted this life." Before he finished his sentence, he staggered 2 steps and managed to steady himself by leaning against the wall. He waved his hand weakly and said, "I'm so drunk that I want to sleep."
Sleep, King, sleep first.
He actually leaned against the wall and started snoring, as if he had never thought that this was the enemy's territory and that he was surrounded by many of his greatest enemies. He did not have to worry about being killed in his sleep, so he slept peacefully and comfortably. Yun-Yang was taken aback by what he saw. It was another eye-opener for him. Wasn't the Fox King a little too ambitious? Even if they treated each other with sincerity, wasn't this a little too much? Of course he is. He has the ability to do so. Do you think you can kill him now? Looking at Yun-Yang's shocked expression, second brother Wu smiled bitterly. Impossible.
Sigh, what's bothering me now is that he'll inevitably leave behind a foul smell when he lies here.
I'll have to worry about it for a few days. Coquettish fox, you really deserve your reputation.
Fox King said in a daze. Second brother Wu, if you keep talking nonsense, do you believe that I won't leave here?
I was wrong.
Please be magnanimous. Don't lower yourself to my level.
Wu Ol Second's face was full of bitterness as he humbled himself, making Yun-Yang even more dizzy. The way these old fellows get along with each other is really hard to fathom. However, the only reply he got was a series of snoring sounds.
I say, seniors, don't you suspect me at all?
After the Fox King had fallen asleep, Yun-Yang, who was still puzzled about the matter, finally asked, "Isn't your background already clear to me?" The few old men were all grinning from ear to ear like a group of old foxes who had just eaten a chick.
How is it clear?
Yun-Yang was puzzled. I'm a stowaway, my background is unknown, and my motive is even more so. Just your identity as the leader and founder of the Celestial Luck Banner is enough. Boss Wu's eyes were filled with kindness as he looked at Yun-Yang, while the rest of the group was laughing, overjoyed. It was hard to tell if they had always been this jovial, or if Yun Yang's arrival had triggered the laughter that had been accumulated over the years. These people were all old and experienced. Although each of them seemed to be straightforward and didn't seem to have any schemes, in reality, they were just too lazy to scheme. If they really wanted to scheme, each of their hearts were as clear as a mirror and extremely transparent. Whether a person was good or bad, or how his nature was, as long as these old fellows interacted with him, they could see through him in at most an hour. Even if Yun Yang's intelligence was superior, he could not escape the eyes of these old fellows when he was not on guard. At least, in the eyes of these old fellows, Yun Yang was a promising talent with a promising future. In Old Wu's words, this child could not be that bad no matter how bad he was. Especially after the matter of cooking with the heaven and earth treasures, the 9 old fellows' recognition of Yun Yang was unprecedented. It was just a meal and a few dishes, but he had used up to 100 kinds of heaven and earth treasures in one go. Every single stock was a priceless treasure. It could be said that if these hundreds of heavenly treasures were exchanged for wealth and resources, it would be more than enough to support any genius from the Enlightenment stage to the Saint King stage. Moreover, it would be the kind that could be developed in an extremely short period of time, and the foundation would be exceptionally solid, without any hidden dangers. Any stock of spiritual plant, spiritual root, or spiritual seedling might not even be seen by an ordinary family in their lifetime, let alone possessing such exquisite goods. What was more, they did not enjoy it in the usual sense. Almost all the essences of the ingredients had been removed, only taking the parts that could be used as delicacies. Almost all of them were dregs. Eating them was no different from cultivation, only for the sake of satisfying one's appetite. In spite of this, Yun Yang generously took them out and allowed them to be trampled on just to admire the old seniors who had guarded the Bloody Soul Mountain for tens of thousands of years. He had no complaints, be it before or after. Just this generosity, this boldness, and this temperament were not something an ordinary person could possess. If they were in Yun Yang's shoes, none of them would have such a temperament at his age. Just based on this, the old fellows were willing to help him. Moreover, it was not a big deal to really go to the demon race's side. Their only purpose of guarding here was to prevent the demon race from coming over. With Yun Yang's current cultivation base, even if he went to the demon realm, as long as he did not commit himself to courting death, he had a great chance. Senior, may I ask what level this Fox King's cultivation base has reached? Compared to the seniors, which one is higher and which one is lower? Yun Yang was curious. The cultivation base of these old fellows was extraordinarily high. He could not see through any of them, even when his cultivation base had a significant breakthrough. The Fox King has reached the pinnacle of cultivation in this world, the level of a saint. Yu said faintly, similar to this old man, a second-grade saint, roughly on par. As for Wu Lauer and the others, the weakest among them is a 4th-grade Saint Venerable. 2 of them are half-step Saint Venerables. Feng Lingtian said, "It's been an uncomfortable day today. I've been taking Chinese medicine for 2 weeks now. Since a few days ago, a layer of goosebumps has appeared all over my body. I didn't notice it, thinking it was a spring allergy. But since today, I've been itching endlessly. When I scratch with my hand, I've scratched a few, which scared me. I went to the hospital because of the Chinese medicine I've taken. My stomach is fine now, and I don't feel anything, but the eczema on my body has completely reappeared. I've taken 4 kinds of medicine and 2 kinds of ointment, applying one during the day and the other at night. Do you know what it feels like to be itchy to death and not be able to scratch it? I'm going crazy." Amp, GT. Chapter 1240. It was so itchy. He rubbed it with iodine. It was so itchy and painful. This feeling made him want to die. He didn't have any mood anymore. "I am the Supreme is taking a day off today. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update." Chapter 1241. Yun Yang understood at once. It seemed that the 9 people in front of him were led by the East Celestial Palace's Yu, who was guarding this pass. Yu looked at Yun Yang with an inexplicable expression and said, "You have the Fox King's token in the demonic realm. It should be able to protect your life. However, there is still something to consider. and that is, to guard your heart. Yun-yang nodded. Please enlighten me, senior. The customs and practices of the demonic realm are very different from those of the human realm. The great cultivators of the demonic race often have the ability to change their forms and are best at bewitching people. Although your cultivation base is high, you are still a young man after all. Moreover, your vital young energy has yet to be broken and you are full of vigor and vigor. You are most easily bewitched by beauty. You have to be especially careful about this. A single misstep can cause you to suffer for eternity. Be careful.
Yun-yang accepted it humbly.
Yes.
He-Bu thought about it and still felt uneasy.
Young friend, if you don't mind, I can imprint an immovable foundation seal into your soul. It can ensure that you are not tempted by anything. Your heart will be as steady as a rock and as immovable as a mountain. It's even better than the spell of frozen heart. Yun-yang thought about it and said, there's no need for that. If I am tempted, my soul will be unstable when I return. Seniors can just kill me directly. This trip to the demonic realm is a cultivation experience for this junior. Only by experiencing it personally can it be considered a personal treasure. If I really can't make it through, then it's my fate and I have nothing to do with anyone. He smiled confidently.
If you need to rely on others to protect you for everything, I believe seniors wouldn't have become peerless experts who can control the safety of the world.
He-Bu's eyes were filled with admiration as he said, that's right. You have such a temperament. I am the one who worries too much. The other elders also showed admiration in their eyes. That's good. Cultivators don't have so many concerns. If they are overcautious about everything in the world, how can they be decisive? The Fox King slept for a full 6 hours. During these 6 hours, the other 9 elders gathered at the side to drink tea. They didn't even talk and were collectively silent. Looking at the rolling green tea leaves in their cups, each of them seemed to be deep in thought. The rising fragrance of the tea reminded them of something. All of their souls seemed to have gone far away, and their eyes were filled with boundless blankness. Yun-yang felt a little embarrassed as he watched, saying in a low voice, Seniors, why don't you go home and have a look when the next shift happens? Staying here will always make you feel lonely. It's true that it's lonely at the top, but it's too bleak and lonely. Su Yunshui chuckled and murmured, Home? How could old farts like us have a home?
The others smiled bitterly at the same time.
Now, we are most envious of the Wu brothers and their entire family. After so many years, not only are their brothers and sisters still alive, but there are also more than 10 of them. Even their father and mother are still alive and living comfortably. That is truly a blessing. Big Brother Wu smiled sadly. My parents are still alive, and they are living a good life. The Wu family is a big family, and it is a fact that we have a lot of people. There were 31 of us brothers and sisters. Now, there are 32 of us. Each of us has our own fate.
Each of us has lived for a long time and this is also a fact. During that period of time we did enjoy all of your envy, and this is also a fact.
However, great families have their own sorrows. There will always be those who are slightly less gifted. Starting from about 7,000 years ago, some of us brothers finally started to fall. Every few hundred years, we have to send one away. After another few hundred years, when the scars have slightly healed, we send another one away. You guys are done once and for all, there's only nostalgia and memories left, but we are destroyed again and again. Just 500 years ago, there were still 10 of us. Now, the 10th is lying on the bed. He's hanging on for more than 100 years, dying countless times, but we've all been saved. Do you know this feeling? King Hell. You've experienced it a few times and you're already feeling terrible. What about us, including our wives, sons, concubines and grandchildren? Each of us has to go through it 1,000 times on average. No matter what happens to your descendants, they won't even blink. Our blood ties have faded, but we still have our brothers and sisters who are fighting for their lives. This old fart actually says that he's envious of us. Second Elder Wu snorted angrily. Why don't we try swapping? Let's see if you can take a baby calling you brother. The other 8 elders were silent. Who would be happier? This was a difficult question to answer. Every family has its own problems. This was indeed a famous saying from ancient times, unchanging since ancient times. Yun-yang sighed and recited softly. Everyone says that longevity is good, but I want to ask what's good about it? After 100 years of a young couple, who would look at them alone? Brotherly love is as vast as the mountains and seas. Who would bear it once they die? Filial piety to their children and grandchildren. Who would bury them when the soil is gone? Others reincarnate while I live forever. Who knows loneliness? This is the ultimate state of longevity that the emperors, generals, and ministers yearn for. However, once one's state of mind is lost, it's no different from falling into the most torturous abyss of the human world. Yun Yang's words made the 9 wise elders fall into silence at the same time. Yun Yang's words were not wrong at all. It was the truth. In this world, no one could live without a partner. Friends, brothers, lovers, children and grandchildren. However, everyone present was the kind of people who could live until all their partners died and still continue to live for many, many years. It could even be said that as long as they were not killed, they could live forever. Living forever in this world was not a form of torture. Take the 9 elders present for example. Their contributions to the human race were undeniable and undeniable, but it was not as if they had not absorbed a sense of duty from the heavy responsibility of protecting the human race. That was why their state of mind had never been dispirited. They were all sensible people, so no one spoke when their thoughts were clear. However, when they occasionally met the gazes of others, they vaguely cherished the moments just now. Right now, only this group of old brothers could still gather together, talk, reminisce about the past, and walk on together. They could no longer understand what the young people were talking about. It was also because of this that Yun Yang's presence was no longer as harmonious as before with the elders' aura. The atmosphere grew more and more oppressive. Just as the atmosphere reached its most oppressive and unbearable point, the Fox King opened his eyes abruptly, waking up coincidentally. A gleam of loneliness flashed across the Demon King's eyes before he chuckled. A bunch of old fellows are letting their imaginations run wild again. It's been so many years, every time I hear you talk about this topic, I feel like fighting to vent the anger in my heart. All of you are too senseless. What's the big deal about your little thoughts? At the very least, we won't die of old age in this lifetime. Isn't this already stronger than many people? The Fox King's words made the group burst into laughter again, the tense atmosphere dissipating. The Fox King turned to Yun Yang. Child, are you ready? Yun Yang lifted his head calmly. I've long been prepared. I'm just waiting for Senior's convenience. The Fox King's voice returned to its usual indifference. There's something you have to know. I've eaten your meal and drank your wine to repay your karma. The rise and fall of fate. It's all karma. I didn't mean to help you. Therefore, I can only send you in and protect you. However, when you go to the demonic realm, you won't get my help for anything related to it. You're not allowed to use my name to carry out any matters. Do you understand? There's one more point that needs to be made clear. In the demon plane, there are no less than 10 demon kings who are not beneath me in terms of cultivation base or status. You can't afford to offend any one of these existences. If you act recklessly and offend them, then it's beyond the scope of my protection. I can't possibly become enemies with my clansmen for you. The Fox King looked at Yun Yang, his gaze cautious. You have to be prepared. Even with a little bit of my protection, there's still no guarantee that you can come back alive. If you regret it now, it's still not too late. I can give you another benefit to make up for what you've done. Yun Yang smiled and stood up. Senior, let's go. The Fox King smiled. Good. Since that's the case, follow me. Before his words echoed in the air, the Fox King waved his sleeves. Yun Yang felt his vision blur. He was no longer in the cave but was high up in the sky. What greeted him was a blizzard of goose feathers. Looking around, it was a world of ice and snow. There was no other color between heaven and earth other than a vast expanse of silvery white. In this vast expanse of sky and earth, an immeasurable amount of demonic chi soared into the sky, filling the firmament. Amidst the whistling of the wind, Yun Yang felt himself being flung away by an immense force, his body tumbling in the air. The Fox King's voice rang in his ears at the same time. Move freely from here. It's not convenient for me to leave the bloody soul's mouth for too long. The voice was still ringing in his ears, but the Fox King had already disappeared. Yun Yang mustered a mouthful of mystical chi and plummeted 40,000 feet down like a meteor. With a loud boom, he crashed into a pile of snow. When the snow shot up into the sky due to the impact, Yun Yang had already disappeared without a trace.
It was as if he had melted from the fall. There was no trace of him at all.
Somewhere far away, the Fox King frowned.
He realized that Yun Yang's aura had truly vanished. Not only that, even the aura of the token he had given him had vanished as well.
This young fellow is strange indeed. He has a lot of tricks up his sleeves.
The Fox King shook his head indifferently and sped back to the bloody soul's mouth.
To him, today's incident was only a cause and effect, nothing more.
Now, the lake of his heart had regained its tranquility.
No matter what happened to Yun Yang in the future, it was no longer his concern. What kind of storm could a mere token cause? It did not matter anymore. Besides, even if something did happen, who would dare implicate him? Chapter 1242. Yun Yang's actions were indeed intentional.
He had purposely fallen from a high altitude, and the moment he landed on the snowy ground, he had immediately channeled the power of his water manifestation and turned himself into a snowflake, blending into the snow on the ground. Then, he had followed the wave of snow that had been splashed into the sky, drifting with the wind. He did not particularly care which direction he had been splashed in. It did not matter which direction he had been splashed in. As for the medallion that the Fox King could no longer sense, Yun Yang had sent it into his deific consciousness at once. The existence of the Fox King's medallion might be a form of insurance that could provide considerable help, but it was also equivalent to carrying the Fox King's deific consciousness with him. If the medallion was not targeted, the Fox King would be able to find him at once no matter where he went. Such a hidden threat was a safety taboo that had to be avoided. If he were to meet with danger, he would not give up on this aid. He could just take out the medallion immediately. However, if it was not necessary, Yun Yang was determined not to simply use this trump card that could be called a double-edged sword. The snowflake that Yun Yang had turned into drifted forward with the wind, taking in the entire grassy plain before him. It was said that the population of the demon race was huge and densely packed, but I've been drifting for half a day. Why haven't I seen anything? Did that old thing throw me into the Forsaken Land? Not long after, however, Yun Yang noticed something different. This did not seem to be the usual base of the demon race. On the vast expanse of white land, there seemed to be something moving. The reason why he had not seen it before was probably because the demons were all the same color as the grassy plain. In his haste, he had not been able to differentiate the snow-white bear demons, wolf demons, fox demons, and, all in all, without exception, they were all snow-white, without a hint of other colors. After observing them carefully for a while, Yun Yang confirmed another thing. Not only did these fellows look snow-white, they were also very heavy. They were so lazy that it was infuriating, so lazy that they could lie in the snow and not move for a long time. Wasn't he too good at enduring the cold? Yun Yang was able to move freely in the snowfield, just because his mystical chi was thick and his cultivation base was profound. He had also transformed into the water form of drifting snow, so the chill of the snowfield could do nothing to him. But what about the demonic beasts? Yun Yang roughly estimated that many of them were only low-level beginner-level beasts, and their combat power was negligible. How could they resist the cold so well? At the same time that he discovered that there were many low-level beginner beasts in the snowfield, Yun Yang also discovered that there were beings with abilities that were different from the Great Dawn continent. There were powerful auras flowing faintly in a few large snowy mountains far away, but these were the few auras that could make Yun Yang feel wary in the tens of thousands of miles of snowfield before him. Yun Yang knew that the owners of these auras were not easy to deal with. He, who had always adhered to the strategy of being willing to sail a ship for 10,000 years, naturally would not act rashly. After observing for a long time, he realized that the few auras seemed to be hiding their tracks, but they were actually concealing their presence. Deep down, they were all domineering, giving the impression that they were minding their own business. To be clear, if you don't provoke me, I won't provoke you either. Yun Yang calculated and already had an idea in his heart. Territory. Territorial awareness. This side is mine, and that side is yours. The demonic race and the human race had very different attitudes towards the scope of individual forces. It was rare for the human powerhouses to spread their deific consciousness so brazenly, but the demonic race's powerhouses paid special attention to their own territories. If they did not spread their deific consciousness for a long time, The surrounding opponents would instead think that they were at the end of their tether and covet it. Based on Yun Yang's standpoint and his usual approach, it was appropriate for him to stir up some trouble now, such as luring a demon king into another demon king's territory and causing them to fight each other to the death, resulting in both sides suffering heavy losses. Or perhaps, he could use a certain treasure of heaven and earth to gather the demon kings in the nearby regions and fight it out so that he could reap the benefits. However, Yun Yang had other motives for this trip. At least for now, he did not want to cause any additional trouble. He quickly identified the direction and headed towards the center of the demon steppes. Yun Yang had two important objectives for this trip. One was to investigate if the god of wine was really related to the demonic race. Or was it related to the Four Seasons Tower and the demonic race? If so, could the bones of the 12 celestial beings in the god's grave be used to complete the task and end this case? Or was there something else that he had not thought of? As for the other objective, what was the purpose of the demon race's abduction of the people of the Bound of Universe all these years? What did they want? Just like that, the snowflakes fluttered for tens of thousands of miles. When Yun Yang was about to walk out of the snowfield, he roughly knew the name of this snowfield. White Plains. It was a simple and crude name, but it was a name that went straight to his heart. The name alone was not enough to disappoint Yun Yang. What disappointed Yun Yang more was that there were almost no treasures of heaven and earth in this vast White Plains. Even if there were a few, they were all within the territory of those powerful existences and they had to be very, very close to those existences. As for other places, forget about treasures of heaven and earth. Even the roots of grass were almost eaten up. This was probably the fundamental reason why the tens of thousands of miles of White Plains were so vast, where the strong grew stronger and the weak grew weaker. Although Yun Yang had long heard that the demon clan was not wealthy, he was still surprised that they could be this poor. However, there were also things that caught Yun Yang's attention on the White Plains. Even with Yun Yang's speed of movement, the long journey of tens of thousands of miles took some time. When he was about to reach the border of White Plains, Yun Yang suddenly realized that there was a type of fruit tree growing in countless places. Each tree had a diameter of several feet and each leaf was several feet wide. The leaves were milky white, like huge white clouds that stood in the air. Under the leaves hung many fruits that were as big as sacks, falling down heavily. Yun Yang had floated over to check more than once to make sure that there was no trace of demonic qi on the trees, but they were filled with the pulse of life. The sack-sized fruits weighed about 200 caddies each and each tree could bear hundreds of fruits. More than half of them were white while the rest were either yellow or red. Looking at them, they looked like lanterns of various colors hanging on the trees. To be able to grow in such a frigid area, the trees were obviously not afraid of the cold. Yun Yang collected the 3 fruits and entered his deific consciousness space. Naturally, there was one for each color, white, yellow, and red. When Yun Yang took a break, he opened the fruits to observe them and found that they contained something similar to rice. It tasted sweet and fragrant, soft but not greasy, with a hint of spiritual qi. It was an excellent food to fill one's stomach. After opening all 3 fruits, he confirmed the meaning of the fruits of each color. The white fruits were still in the growth stage. Although they could be used, they tasted bitter and difficult to swallow. The yellow ones were half-ripe, tasteless and tasteless, barely edible. Only the red ones were ripe and suitable for consumption. This is good stuff. Yun Yang looked at the many trees in the White Plains, his eyes reddening. One fruit alone was equivalent to 170 to 180 caddies of rice. Not only did the ripe fruits taste good and could fill one's stomach, they also contained spiritual qi. Although the spiritual qi was very thin and much weaker than the most common of heaven and earth treasures, if a person were to eat such fruits for a long period of time, what kind of concept would that be? A tree could grow at least 300 to 400 fruits. Even if one fruit was only 100 caddies, one could still harvest more than 30,000 caddies. However, how many trees were there in this area that he could see with his naked eyes? The most conservative estimate would be at least 10,000 trees. In other words, this piece of land alone could produce at least 4 million caddies of high-quality rations? Yet, how much could the demon race eat to digest so much food? How many places like this were there in the entire White Plains? Calculating in this way, it wasn't just unusual, it was simply horrifying when one thought about it, and horrifying when one observed it. Yun Yang plucked another leaf from the fruit tree. He could not help being shocked when he felt the weight on his hand. Yun Yang was already at the level of a supreme saint. He could move mountains and fill oceans with just a wave of his hand.
Although he could not circulate his mystical chi at the moment, his physical strength was already impressive. Yet, a leaf like this could actually make his hand feel heavy. It had to be at least 1,000 caddies in weight. Yun Yang stared at the snow-white leaf that was about 3 feet thick and 50 to 60 feet wide.
He tried to stab it with the tip of his sword, only to find that the leaf was unusually sturdy.
Yun Yang injected mystical chi into the sword and managed to cut through the leaf. Juice flowed out from within. The juice was clear and transparent, mixed with a faint fragrance. It was also an excellent drink that could be consumed.
Yun Yang tried to take a sip and his eyes could not help but widen. Not only was the juice of the leaf sweet and delicious, it also contained a trace of spiritual chi, not at all inferior to ordinary spiritual tea.
If such a fruit tree could grow in the human world, would there still be a need to fear disaster? As Yun Yang's thought spun, he connected the dots.
With his intellect, how could he not know that there must be unique conditions for a unique creature to grow?
For example, the tree's odd form and the fact that it was growing in the snowfield, there must be something special about it.
At the very least, the environment it grew in might not be anywhere in the bound of universe or the Tianxian continent.
Moreover, the tree might have a lot of requirements for nutrients as well. However, this did not affect Yun Yang's desire. There must be a seal.
While the world was vast and full of wonders, there was also adaptability. He believed that there would be a place that was suitable for such a plant to grow.
The fruit tree alone was of no use to Yun Yang's cultivation base, but it was a great help to ordinary living beings in this world that could sustain their survival. To put it bluntly, as long as a tree was planted, a village could not go hungry for a year. To any commoner, this was more important than many treasures of heaven and earth.
Therefore, he had to get his hands on this item.
Yun Yang had the intention to snatch it, but he had to plan before he acted. With his cautious personality, he wanted to be fully prepared and not leave any loose ends. Yun Yang studied it again and realized that each of the fruit trees was entangled with the deific consciousness of the demonic race's experts. The fruit trees that seemed to be everywhere were actually being watched over by someone. If Yun Yang could think of it, so could the demonic race. Such a fruit tree was an excellent strategic resource. Of course, the demonic race would protect it with utmost care. It was not a problem to obtain a fruit or a leaf, as it could be easily obtained. After all, it was not the root.
However, to obtain the entire tree, one would have to first ask the deific consciousness of the experts entangled on the tree.
Furthermore, one would have to face the joint attack of many demonic race experts if one intended to do so. The vast expanse of the White Plains and the numerous fruit trees could never be guarded by just one or two experts' deific consciousness. However, Yun Yang had no qualms about alerting the enemy. In spite of this, Yun Yang could not care less. With a single thought, the White Plains shook violently.
The towering trees that had been standing still were uprooted from the ground with a loud rumble.
They flew into the air with large lumps of ice and snow, disappearing instantly. The moment the tree disappeared, countless demonic beasts flew over from the distant sky, emerged from the snow, or materialized out of thin air.
Each of them looked at the mess on the ground as if they had lost their parents and let out furious roars.
Who did this?
Countless demonic beasts rushed over. All of them prostrated themselves in front of the huge pits, letting out angry roars.
Who stole the tree of life? The tree of life. The name of the fruit tree was so grand, but as the name suggested, it was obvious that the fruit tree was the lifeline of the demonic race. However, it was not only the demonic race who thought so. Yun Yang had the same thought as well.
With tens of thousands of trees like this as the foundation, no matter how many more people the demonic race produced, at the very least, there would not be any demons who would starve to death.
Therefore, the name of the tree of life was well deserved. The tree was just like its name. Yun Yang, who had turned into the form of the wind, looked at the countless demons that were covered in snow. It was as if he had seen an avalanche that had gathered hundreds of thousands, millions, and tens of millions of demons. Everywhere he looked, there were demonic beasts everywhere. The densely packed beasts were still gathering from all directions. First level, second level, seventh level, surpassing level, king level, supreme level. Foxes, tigers, lions, rats, snakes, and many others. In short, there were many of them. Other than the absence of feline demonic beasts, the rest were almost all restrained. Even the surging demonic aura was not enough to describe the current atmosphere. The demonic aura was everywhere. Everywhere it went. Yun Yang now had a clear understanding. If he could kill all the demonic beasts in front of him and take their cores, he would become the richest man in the entire bound of universe, and he would be the only one of a kind. Yun Yang pinched his thigh forcefully, nipping the suicidal thought out of his mind. Not to mention anything else, just by looking at the number of demonic beasts here, if he were to show himself, he would be reduced to ashes in an instant. To put it simply, every single demon beast spit was enough to drown him to death. Right now, this wasn't an exaggeration, but a reality. It was more than enough. If they died somewhere else, there might be a chance of resurrection. However, if they died here, they could only become the feces of the demonic beasts. Even his body and divine soul were the same. Becoming the richest man in Xianhuang is actually not a difficult task. We can take it slow. Yun Yang comforted her and drifted away leisurely. What demon core? What fur? It was all calcium. But why does my heart hurt so much? 2-in-1, apt, 2-in-1, mobile reading access, M. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.